All right, so let's get started. My name is James Orr. I am joined tonight by Jassen Bowman. Thank you for joining us, Jassen.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Tonight we are going to go over the buying process overview. So, whoops, kind of getting ahead of myself here. So we're going to go over basically what the process is for buying houses, specifically for nomads. We'll discuss a lot of that. And I think one of the interesting things, and one of the reasons why I wanted you on, Jassen, was we had talked a little bit before about you've had your real estate license in the past. I'm a real estate broker here in Northern Colorado, but you have thought, at least from time to time, of getting your real estate license again. So in some ways, you're kind of like the bridge between nomads who are buying properties and also someone who is not familiar with how nomads work as a real estate broker, but kind of getting involved and maybe getting their license. And so you're kind of a good, helpful tool for people to kind of be a proxy for them, for both as an agent in another market, learning how to work with nomads, and also a nomad themselves. So at least that was my thought. Is that still true?
Absolutely. And obviously I'm always one of those people that wants to suck on your brain like a zombie. And, if you seriously, if you have any input throughout this presentation as to, contrasting licensed versus unlicensed, whether it's worthwhile, et cetera, for the nomad adventure. I know I would personally be interested in that, and I'm sure other people would be too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. Hey, I just noticed, I think your video is showing up as just a black box.
Is that what it is?
Maybe you want to like right click on the options on the video and say hide myself, because then it will not show you at all when you're talking.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, cool. So hopefully that'll then show just me here. We'll see. Okay. So yeah, if you guys could just introduce yourselves in the chat window. I do a really informal presentation, so you are welcome and encouraged to interrupt with questions. Go ahead and use the chat window to do that. But if you could let me know who you are, and then what's your excuse for not doing your first deal. I think everyone's got an excuse if you haven't done your first deal. So might as well let me know what the excuse is, and if we could address that really quickly and solve it, then let's go ahead and do that. But let me know who you are, also where you're from, because I think we're starting to get some people from some other markets. We're taking the nomad stuff and going nationwide. We've launched in 20 additional cities besides Northern Colorado. And so if you'd let me know kind of like where you're from too, that'd be great. And then what's your excuse for not doing your first deal? That'd be awesome. So thank you for those that are going to participate. Lynn, thank you. Welcome. Process for buying my first deal. Closing by March 10th. That's awesome. That's great news.
Nice.
Sandy Fort Collins, just started to get everything lined up for my first deal. Okay, well, that's definitely fair. So yeah, welcome everybody. I appreciate that. Anyone else who wants to join? Oh, Josh, business based in Charleston. Excuse for not doing my first deals. Haven't been able to find a wholesale deal that I think I can sell off. Okay, so Josh, we're primarily talking about Nomad. We're not talking usually about wholesaling here. And so we're not going to be covering anything related to wholesaling. And the Nomad thing is basically owner-occupant. We're going to cover exactly what Nomad is. But yeah, we don't usually talk about wholesaling with Nomad at all. So we can definitely talk more about that. All right, so let's kind of just go there. Jassen, did you want to do an introduction of yourself? I know people who were on last week kind of met you because you were on for the Financing 101 class. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you want to share with people, like who you are and what you're doing?
Well, I guess just the same thing. I went bankrupt in the real estate crash back in the day, 07, 08. Chapter 7. I was a broker, investor before that. Started off in a totally new career in the tax industry, actually. So did a career change. I literally lived in my car for 10 months. After the bankruptcy, I was kind of the, stereotypical, I guess, worst case scenario from the fallout during the whole meltdown. But now I literally just closed on house number 2 under the Nomad model about 5 weeks ago. First property was a duplex that I bought using a VA loan. I had enough entitlement left under my VA eligibility So I did a second VA loan. So for those of you wondering, hey, can you do that? Yes, you can. And right now I'm really just trying to keep my credit cards paid off, keep my debt load down. I've become kind of one of those fanatics about my credit score,
Okay.
because of the whole bankruptcy thing. And so I track my credit score kind of religiously, and just trying to save up enough money for house number 3. That's kind of where I'm at.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that resonates with some people on the call. And I know Elijah just said he's from Fort Collins, and his excuse for not doing his first deal is repairing his credit. So maybe you could kind of give him a tip as someone who went through a bankruptcy. And did you have foreclosure as well?
Yeah, so I had foreclosure as well. My primary residence was a condo in Old Town Fort Collins. I live in Seattle area now. But yeah, don't do what I did for a couple of years afterwards.
Okay, so basically you had some hiccups, and then you went and you repaired your credit.
Correct.
And now you're on the path to recovery. I mean, you're doing the Nomad model. You bought 3 doors, a duplex, and a single family home. So what would you give in the 2-minute version? What would you give people tips for kind of quickly repairing your credit and going from where you were, essentially living in your car. You got a great story, by the way. Living in your car, foreclosure, bankruptcy. Do you have a car repo as well? You should tell me that last week.
Yeah. So after my bankruptcy, I bought a truck. It was part of my credit repair plan, but I got teed at an intersection down in the Boulder area, and I didn't have gap insurance on my truck that I had bought. And so the difference between what the insurance paid off and what I actually owed was about $5,000, and I didn't have it. So the lesson there is make sure you have gap coverage. But that was literally 2 years after my bankruptcy. So the fact that I had this additional collection because of the $5,000 against my truck loan, it extended by about 4 years, really, what I could do in terms of recovery. So I guess the lesson there I would say is about 2 years after a bankruptcy, you're going to be bombarded with new credit offers and offers to buy new vehicles. Don't get sucked in.
Okay, so don't do that.
Yeah.
And if you had to do it over again, what do you think the fastest you could buy a house recovering from the bankruptcy, foreclosure, and repo?
Well, I mean, if you look at loan guidelines, technically it's 2 years under a VA. Realistically, I would say 3 or 4.
So wait a minute, the VA. So FHA is 2 years for a bankruptcy, right?
Yep. So it's VA.
But it's 3 years from the foreclosure.
The foreclosure got wrapped up in my Chapter 7.
But it still was a foreclosure, right?
Actually, technically, it shows on my credit as just under. It was coded. So, okay, I filed Chapter 7 2 days after the formal foreclosure proceeding.
Okay.
But for some reason, I don't know if I lucked out. I don't know if this is normal. But because I included the foreclosure creditor on my Chapter 7, it got coded on my credit report as being under the Chapter 7, not as a foreclosure, actually.
Okay. So you could have possibly done it as soon as 2 years after.
If I had kept my nose straight with everything else, yeah.
And if you could do it back again, would you go and start repairing your credit as soon as you had the bankruptcy or foreclosure?
Absolutely. I would have gone to my credit union and taken out one of those things where, you give them $500 on a deposit and they keep it and they give you a $500 secured line of credit. Yeah.
Okay.
I would have done that from the get-go, and I'd probably be 5-6 years ahead of where I am now.
Okay. So people should probably go talk to somebody if they're in a similar situation to you. They should probably go talk to somebody who is a credit specialist there locally in their marketplace and kind of get some help with what that is, because I'm not an expert on that stuff.
Yeah. Do you mind if I share a resource actually for Elijah?
Sure.
Something that helped me out a lot. The myfico.com forums, not necessarily the FICO products that they sell you, but the credit repair forums are a literal diamond mine of credit repair information.
Okay, that's good.
That's helped me immensely. So check that out.
myfico.com, their forums are pretty good.
Correct.
All right, cool. They go check that out. So, all right, cool. Let's go talk about some of the upcoming classes and stuff. We have some people kind of joined us a little bit late here. Elijah says thank you, so you're welcome, Elijah. Appreciate that. So, upcoming classes. This week we are going over the buying process overview. Next week we're going to go over finding properties for nomads. That's going to be on Tuesday, January 31st, 6 to 8 Mountain Standard Time. Nomad 101, Nomad frequently asked questions and answers. And I probably should, I haven't done it yet, but I probably should email out all of the Northern Colorado real estate kind of group people and also the nationwide people and ask them what are their questions about Nomad. You know, what questions do you have? And we'll kind of compile them and do it. And I get asked questions all the time, so I kind of know what the most common ones are. But definitely if people have additional ones, you know, drop me an email. My email is james.orr@gmail.com. You're welcome. Just email me your questions. Hey, listen, if you could answer this for the Nomad 101 FAQs, that'd be great. And then I'll go ahead and compile all those up together, and we'll answer those in one class on February 7th. So that's going to be that one coming up. Then we're going to go over Analyzing Deals 101. That's on February 14th. Is February 14th Valentine's Day?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So we're going to have Valentine's Day party together. And
hey, some of us call it Singles Awareness Day. Don't forget.
Singles Awareness Day. That's actually pretty funny. I don't know if Tammy's going to be back by then or not. I think she might. I don't think she is back, actually. I think she's still going to be away. So I'll be solo. I'm married, but I'll be solo for Valentine's Day. So we're definitely doing class, and I'll record it. So if you guys want to do Valentine's Day and skip the meeting, that's totally fine with me. We'll post the recording up on that learntoberich.com/meetup. For Wednesday and Thursday. And then we do pull it down on Thursday, and then only premium nomads can watch previously recorded content. But it does go on the recording thing for 2 days after that. So Analyzing Deals 101, an intro to cash-on-cash return on investments. One of the primary factors we want to analyze when we're buying nomad properties. Not that you're going to be renting these unless it's a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, but it's not that you're going to be renting the property right away, but you're going to be living there for a year, and then after a year, you're going to convert it to a rental. So you really do want to understand what that property's investment characteristics are going to look like, the numbers on it, the return on it. It's going to look like after you convert it to a rental. So we definitely want to do that, and we're going to go through an analysis class on how to understand what cash-on-cash return is. And we'll go over a little bit of Brian's spreadsheet, which I'll talk to you about a little bit later tonight as well. Then we have class on February 21st, strategies to get the lowest monthly payment when buying. I just taught this class live, I don't know, it must have been a couple months ago now, a month ago or so, about how to minimize your monthly payment because it's a major factor when you're buying. And so we're going to go into a lot of detail on that on February 21st. That's a Tuesday, 6 to 8 o'clock. So any questions on upcoming class schedule? Did we cover that, Jason?
Yeah, pretty good.
Okay, good.
Also, you might want to remind people about the schedule on the meetup groups in their local area. Oh,
yeah, that's true. So on Tuesday nights, we do the live class. Then on Thursday, everywhere except for Northern Colorado, we have a meetup in their local market where you get together and you discuss the class for the week and the strategy and network with other real estate agents and lenders and inspectors and everyone else who kind of helps that, as well as other nomads, about how to implement the nomad strategy in your local market. Because I'm going to be teaching you, especially tonight, I'm going to be teaching you a lot of stuff about how I work with local clients and how this kind of works in general. But there's definitely some nuance to doing in other markets. And so, Jason's going to be the voice of reason, kind of keeping me straight about, what we're talking about and how that may adapt to other markets, because he'll say, hey, listen, that may not apply in my market or other markets. And he'll remind me to kind of mention that. So, but if you want to see the upcoming classes too, you can go to learntoberich.com /schedule goes there, but also /meetup will show you the local meetup classes and what the schedule looks like below there. And I've been toying around with the idea, maybe Jason will kind of chime in, or some of the people on the call will chime in, but I've been thinking about, instead of just putting up the recording of the class from Tuesday on Wednesday and Thursday, maybe putting up the class from Tuesday on Wednesday and Thursday, and then last week's class too, and have it so that both the class for this week and the class from the previous week are up and available as recording. So if you guys want to, go on the chat and tell me if you think that's a good idea or not, I'd have to go and do some coding to make it work the way I wanted to. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So I might have to go do that. I thought people would just be watching it and it wouldn't be a big deal, so we wouldn't have to keep it up for very long. But I guess I'm wrong about that. We need to have 2 weeks worth up there. So, okay. I got the feedback. A couple people said, yeah, it's a good idea. So we'll definitely go and do that. But I just got to do it. I got to find some time to go do it. So it may not be right away, but we will do that eventually. All right, cool. Did we cover everything for classes, Jason?
Yeah. And if you need help with the video stuff, let me know. I can help you out with that.
Okay. I appreciate that offer too. So why don't you let me save my voice here for a moment and let us know what all of us what Nomad is. And I'll give you a hint. It's on the screen.
Ooh, I get to do the circle graph. Awesome. So Nomad is a real estate investing strategy that, in my opinion, is heavily simplified. It doesn't require any of the crazy, creative real estate investing things. There's no wholesaling. There's no subject to. There's no wraps. There's none of this kind of stuff that you'll see in a lot of real estate investing courses or books. Instead, what you do is do what a lot of people already do. You buy a house, you move in, and you pay the mortgage. That's the plan. Then, once a year, you do it again. You move out, buy another house, and you keep the old property as a rental. And then you just keep doing that until you have this stable of cash flow producing rental properties, of which I have currently 2 units, and you just build your wealth from that. Was that a good summary? James? I think we lost you on the audio, James. James, can you hear me? Oh, you want me to keep talking? Okay. Well, all I can really do is talk about my own experience. I bought my first property August of 2015. I bought a duplex using my VA loan benefits because I spent 6 years in the Navy. I bought a house that had an existing tenant in the 2-bedroom side. I lived in the smaller 1-bedroom side. Literally today, I got finished with some renovations on the duplex. And so starting tomorrow, that will be available for rental. And I'll be renting that out. The reason I bought a duplex was because the rent from the other unit covered about 85% of the mortgage. The past year and a half, I've been living very, very cheaply, actually.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
All right. So apparently my microphone went out, and I'll keep the microphone thing open.
Okay.
So, yeah, sorry about that, guys.
No problem.
Let's see if we can resume. All right, cool. So what I find pretty fascinating, and let me know if you can't hear me anymore, but what I find fascinating is how other people describe Nomad. So Nomad basically is buy a house as an owner-occupant. You got to move in. That's part of the requirement of doing Nomad.
Yep.
Live there for a year, then buy a new home, convert the previous one to a rental, and then you repeat the process until you have the number of rentals that you want to acquire, whether that's 1 rental property or 10 rental properties or 20 rental properties. It's whatever number you want to do. So if you want to just kind of follow that model, that's basically what Nomad is. And it allows you to do this with very little down payment and kind of get there. So,
and James, can I really quickly, this is the IRS side of my life coming through, but can I really quickly talk about mortgage fraud?
Sure, please do.
Cool. So the reason that the 12-month thing, the 1 year of as an owner occupant is there, you get a better interest rate, you get lower down payment terms, et cetera, for buying and moving in. And there's people that will inevitably say, why can't I just buy a house, say I'm going to live there, and I'll just live there for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then they go buy another house. Well, that's called mortgage fraud. It is a felony. Average prison term is about 5 to 7 years. for doing that. So
I have a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, whose tenant actually went to prison for mortgage fraud.
Really? Okay.
So it's not a joke. Hey, I got a question here from Josh. Says, you've already gone through a crash once. What are you doing to diversify your portfolio? And, one of the things that I kind of tell people, Josh, is, the great thing about Nomad is you invest very little down payment. And so you should take your money and invest it in other things as well. This is not a put all of your eggs into one basket. And it makes it easier to diversify because you are taking your money to buy housing and you're using very small amounts down and you're buying properties. The other thing I'll point out is we are not trying to speculate and do short-term appreciation plays and try to buy properties and hope that they go up in value in a year, 2 years, or 3 years. The plain vanilla version of the Nomad model has you buy the properties and hold them for 40 years. And so you pay them off and they are completely, free and clear, and you're doing cash flow from those. So the market can go down for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. It really doesn't matter if you do the plain Nomad model because you're holding the properties until they're completely paid off. And then at that point, you're cash flowing them. So, in my opinion, as long as they're kind of holding their own, that's what the intent of a lot of these Nomad model properties are doing. So Norberto says, there's an exception for extenuating circumstances, new baby relocation outside the area. I'm not sure what that's in reference with. Is that maybe the 2 FHA loans or something like that? Or we're moving less than a year. Sure. Yeah, if you're moving less than a year and you've got extenuating circumstances, sure. We totally get that part of it. What we're trying not to encourage people to do is buy a property, owner occupy it, and fraudulently moving out after a month or 2 months or 3 months consistently. You should not go into this as, I'm going to be doing this. I'm only going to live there for a month and then do it. We really want you to kind of become a partner in a lot of ways with your lender. They're going to loan you the overwhelming majority of the money to buy these houses. We think you should obey their rules and kind of, be fair with them. So, well, Josh, are you using all conventional loans for year 1 through 8? We actually discussed in financing in detail last week, but the pretty much the recommended model is if you can get VA, do VA. If you can get FHA, then do VA, do FHA next. And then we're doing conventional 5% down for loans up to 10. And then after that, we're doing portfolio loans. So Loretta says, new baby, different gender. That's no bueno. So,
hey,
so Josh is great.
Real quick.
What's that?
Real quick.
Yeah.
Because I did my second purchase, the house I'm actually sitting in right now, under VA as well, I had to provide a written statement and sign it under penalty of perjury as to why I needed a second house in the same area code. Yeah, and I think that's going to be expected. We're going to have to justify why we're buying properties and just talk to your lender and plan on that. But I think that's totally reasonable. So, all right, cool. Let's continue on here. So buying process overview. Let's kind of go through this here. So this is kind of a visual representation. I'm primarily an audible learner, so I like to listen to audiobooks, and I learn a lot by just kind of hearing things and talking. But there are some people that are very visual in nature. And so I wanted to kind of hit that large group as well. And so we visually show you what the process looks like. And I'm going to go into a lot of detail on these tonight. Some of these blocks are complete 2-hour classes on their own. But we're going to go into a lot of detail, especially with the earlier ones tonight. So here's the overview. The overview is the first thing we're going to talk about is the first meeting with me, as if you're on your real estate agent here locally, or if you're working with another real estate agent in another market. What I think should be covered in a first meeting with a real estate agent when you sit down and talk to them, especially one that's very Nomad friendly, kind of what we go over. And I'm going to go into a lot of detail with that tonight. Then we're going to talk about doing pre-showings. Last week when we went over the financing stuff, we covered some stuff on pre-showings. We're going to go over some additional stuff on pre-showings today. Then the next step is showings when you go look at a house. And pre-showings, by the way, is before you go out looking at houses. That's what I mean by pre-showings. Then showings is when you are actually out looking at properties to possibly buy. And then the next step is once you find a property that you're interested in buying, you're going to go write an offer on that property. And then after that, once you get a contract accepted, from the time when you go under contract until you close on the property, we call that period the contract to close period. And so that's another section that we're going to go over. And then finally, the closing period. That's when you actually show up. The lender shows up with the majority of the money. You show up with your down payment and you close. You transfer ownership from the seller of the property to you as the buyer. And then after that, the post-closing, the relationship you have with your real estate agent kind of after the property is closed. And I'll tell you up front, we're going to cover it in a little bit of detail later. But my feeling on this is that your real estate agent, especially if you're doing Nomad, should have a very long
ongoing relationship with you. They should be teaching you how to screen tenants and do asset protection and plan for your loans and minimize vacancy in your property and analyze deals and do all that stuff, especially if you're going to be acquiring a number of rental properties using the Nomad model or other model. I think part of what we can offer as real estate agents, because I'm an agent myself here in Northern Colorado, but part of the thing that we can offer to our clients is this ongoing education part. It's not like we just show up, we work you for 30 days, we get a paycheck, we go away, and you never hear from us again. That's not the intent. The intent is to be serviceable throughout the year, throughout the 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is between buying properties that we have for our clients. And I think that's part of the Nomad philosophy, is kind of educating as we go and helping people with that. You want to add anything to that, Jason, before I kind of move on?
No, I think the graphic really explains it all.
All right, cool. So let's get moving with the first meeting. This is the first meeting with me. I'll kind of explain to you what I do, but realize your real estate agent in your market may do things a little bit different. But I'll tell you why I do this. And part of the reason I'm explaining this is other agents in other markets, I think this is a good model to follow. And if other ones want to add kind of what you do that's a little bit different, I'm happy to kind of take suggestions on that. But the idea is that if we can share, what I do and why, and then other agents can kind of share that, overall, all of us can get better. And then also the nomads can kind of understand exactly how we work and why and what to expect. And I think that's going to help people too. So it's probably going to be different in your market if you're in another market, but this is how I do it here. So one of the first things I do with people, we're going to get together, we're going to start buying houses. One of the first things I do is I say, okay, great, let's go sit down and let's go to my favorite restaurant, Qdoba. And, I eat at Qdoba probably, 6 days a week, and I have since 2000. And Jason's laughing because it's actually true.
I'm sorry. It's just hilarious.
It's true though, right? I mean,
yeah,
that this is true. So, for like 16 plus years now, I've been going to basically the same restaurant and eating the same thing for lunch. And so if you're going to be a client of mine, we're probably going to get together. It is not a high-end restaurant. So other agents thinking, do I have to go out to eat at some really fancy restaurant with clients? Jason, is it a fancy restaurant?
Sorry, I had to mute myself. I'm laughing so hard.
Yeah, right? It's not a fancy restaurant. It's like a burrito place. And we just go there, we sit down, and we talk about stuff. And so, we get in line, we're having small talk, where are you from? How are things going? What are you doing this weekend? By the time we order, we get our burritos, we sit down, and there's a little bit more small talk. But then eventually it is, so, what can I do to help you? How can I be of service to you? What do you want to sit down and talk about? And then we start talking about whatever it is that's on their mind. And the level of detail that they want is really up to them. So if they tell me, hey, listen, I want to know every little detail, even though I'm only going to be doing Nomad, I want to know about 20% down loans, I want to know about private loans, I want to know about hard money loans, I want to know about wholesaling, I want to know about whatever, I'm there to serve. And so I'll answer any questions I possibly can and just be helpful to them and be as serviceable as possible. And then if they're clients of mine, if they're actually going to be using me to buy a house, I usually give them a copy of the Northern Colorado Real Estate Advisor book. It's basically a 400-page or so book. Let's see if I've got a copy. I don't think I've got one on my shelf there. Oh, I do. Let me grab it. I'll show it to you. Share a video.
I'm not even in Northern Colorado, and I've got one right in front of me. I've actually been reviewing it the past couple of days.
All right. I don't have the Nomad book, but I got the other two. So this is the book that I give clients. I guess there's the video camera. And it's basically just a book with all the forms for buying and selling in it. It's all in the back here. There's a referral directory halfway through. Then there's a section on buying, selling, and investing. And that's the basic book that we give out to clients when we meet with them. The other book is a different version of this, but it's basically an overview of all the different Nomad books. Like the Nomad different strategies, like what legacy Nomad is, what little down Nomad is, what young Nomad is. So basically it goes over all the basic ones of those. And it's on, the Nomad book is on the website. So in fact, the website's better than the book, honestly, because the website has the charts where you can interact with them, you can zoom in on them, you can make them bigger, you can make them smaller. So I think the online version of the Nomad book is better. But if they're a client, I give them a copy of the Nomad book and also the Northern Colorado Real Estate Advisor book. And that's really how it works. And then we sit down and we're going over stuff. And so how much detail I go into is up to the client. So there are some clients that are just like, I just wanted to sit down with you, tell you, I want to do Nomad. Let's go look at houses. We'll figure it out as we go. Like, great. You know, what is there anything I can answer for you? Do you have questions about anything? I'm here to serve you. We go over some really basic stuff. And then the clients, there are some other clients, especially my engineering clients. I have a lot of engineering clients. So when you start doing a lot of the Nomad math, you tend to get you attract a lot of engineers who really like the numbers. They want to see stuff. Those clients tend to be like, all right, this one little step. Tell me all the detail you know about this one little step. They'll say, okay, now I got that. Let me go and do this next little step. And so we go into a ton of detail about that. And so those clients, they tend to want to know every little thing you could possibly do. And it's hard to teach a 400-page book in a 1-hour lunch. And so that's one of the reasons I give them the book, is that I basically wrote out all the different stuff about the whole process and everything they're going to want to know. And then I'm just like, if you want to know anything else, I'm happy to sit down with you again, or we can go over it as we go look at properties and cover it in detail. But I don't have to teach everything all at once. Plus, I usually give them, I see some questions here. I'll do that in a second. Plus, then I give them these 3 documents. And the 3 documents are unique to Colorado. One of them is called the Definitions of Working Relationships. That basically explains to people that real estate agents can work with you in 3 different ways. They can represent the buyer, they can represent the seller, or they can act as a referee, which is basically a transaction broker where they don't represent either party. They just say, you want to buy, you want to sell, I can help you with that, but I don't represent either of you, and I'm not negotiating on behalf of either of you. I'm kind of playing referee and helping you both buy and sell. There's a 4th thing where you're a customer. Like if I'm representing the seller and someone comes in and wants to buy that property, I'm not representing that buyer coming in. I'm still representing the seller, and I'm acting like they're a customer, that I'm helping my seller sell that property to them. So that's kind of the 4th way, but it's primarily 3 ways that we do that. So that's basically what's described in Definitions of Working Relationships. Exclusive right to buy. We're going to go into a lot of detail on that tonight. That's the agreement that explains what you can expect from me as a real estate broker and what I can expect from you as the buyer. And then the professional services provided, that goes over what I do as the real estate agent and what all of the other professional service providers provide that I do not provide. And we're going to go over that tonight as well. Let me see the questions we had here. So, Jassen, start smart strategy. I'm being pulled into a meeting, means no disrespect by leaving. Appreciate your help and maybe in touch soon. No problem, Josh. No worries. You can watch the recording later. Lynn says, can anyone view the online version? Yeah, Lynn, if you go to the learntoberich.com website, the links all along the top left of the website, it basically describes all the different types of Nomad models, and that is the Nomad book. So the Nomad book itself is right on there. And in addition, this book, the different version of the book, actually the one that had the least option I said, that is also online and for free. So everyone can access both those books, online. So those are the questions. So other agents may provide you with information about buying and some paperwork to be able to work with you. In this case, I'm talking about your brokerage may give you kind of a checklist to give to clients when you sit down with them about financing or about the buying process or whatever. My version, I have my own brokerage. My version of that is this book. So your brokerage may give you a checklist or a sheet or something like that, and that's what you'd use. I basically use that book instead. Does that make sense, Jason?
Absolutely.
All right, cool.
One thing I want to talk about brokerage relationships, make sure that you understand what's involved in a brokerage relationship, especially transactional versus buyer agency. There are a few important distinctions there. So make sure you understand what those are and choose what's best for your situation.
Yeah, we're going to cover a little bit of that tonight. I'm going to go into some detail.
Okay.
So this is basically, that one slide showed you the first meeting with me. This is what's going to happen with the first meeting. So let's go over the paperwork side of it first. But basically, we're going to cover paperwork, including professional service provided. We're going to go over what your goals are. We're going to go over your financing, which is what we covered last week. Last week was the 2-hour version of the financing discussion. And then we're going to talk about receiving property lists, analyzing the deal, and writing an offer. And really, we're just talking about the overview of a lot of these things because it's the first meeting. We're not going to talk in detail about writing the offer. We're not going to go and do a sample mock contract, which I'll talk about later. All right, so forms locally, we talked about these. These are the 3 forms that we give out locally. In other markets, they're going to be different, I can almost guarantee you. Definitions of working relationships, exclusive right to buy, and professional services. So we're going to talk about the exclusive right to buy listing contract. So if you want to see a copy of these, you can go to the Northern Colorado Real Estate Advisor book, the one that I've been talking about. It's in there. There's also one available right on my website, jamesorr.com, whatever that URL is. And then you can also go to the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies Division of Real Estate website. It's the official website for the Colorado Division of Real Estate. And they have all of the forms that I have in this book that we use in Colorado right on that website. So you can do a search for that and pull up all the different forms right there. Roberta says, are these recorded? Yep, we record the videos, and the videos are recorded through Thursday. So yeah, Jason was answering you right on there. So yep, they definitely get recorded. So what is it? The agreement, the exclusive right to buy listing contract agreement, is the agreement between the buyer or buyers and the real estate broker, and it outlines what you should expect from your real estate broker and what your real estate broker should expect from you. And so it's a two-way street. You know, what are your expectations when you're working with the agent or broker in this case, and what the broker should expect from you. It also talks about the compensation for real estate brokers. And I'm going to be very clear up front. The compensation that real estate brokers get paid, it's negotiated. There is no set amount that says, you know, the state says you earn this amount. Basically, it's a negotiation between the broker and the agent themselves, and it's all negotiable. So you can decide, hey, listen, I only want to, James, I'll tell you what, I want you to represent me and I want you to help me buy property, and I want to pay you $100 to do that. And I can say, absolutely, I agree to do that. I will help you buy a house for $100. Or I can say, you know, unfortunately, that's not a good kind of agreement for me. I'm going to opt not to accept your offer to pay me $100 to buy the house. It's completely negotiable, okay? Now, practical consideration for people working with buyers. Most of the time, you know, with properties listed inside the MLS, the seller's agent is going to be offering a certain amount of the commission that they are charging from the seller to pay the buyer's agent coming in with the buyer. So it's common, it's completely negotiable, but it's very common for a seller to maybe pay, you know, 6% as an example. And from that 6%, they may offer the buyer with their buyer's agent, the buyer's agent coming in 3% of that, or half. And so a lot of times there's not a lot of negotiation with the buyer side, because the amount that the commission that is being paid by the seller is already agreed upon and offered. And so a lot of times when I'm working with clients, I'm agreeing to work for whatever the seller is willing to pay. Now, there's a couple of different exceptions to this. You know, for example, for sale by owner properties, or properties where the commission they're offering is either too low. For example, if you're buying a $50,000 property, I may not be willing to work for $450, you know, 3% of $50,000. I just may not be willing to work for that amount. May just be too small. So we may set a minimum on that. Or examples where the commission that a seller is offering is too low for me to say, you know, we need to talk about this. The agent is only offering a $500 commission, not a certain percentage or anything like that. So we need to talk about how we're going to work out compensation. And so the agreement, the exclusive right to buy listing contract, talks about how much is being paid, and you understand exactly where the payment is coming from and how it's paid in that agreement itself. And that's what it covers. Does that help, Jason, understand what's going on?
Yeah, I think it's important for buyers, you know, not just sellers, but buyers also need to understand how the brokers are being compensated, because ultimately it does affect the price that you'll pay for the house. I mean, at the end of the day. Yeah.
So Lynn asks, what do you think of a real estate broker that does none of the things you have mentioned? That makes me really nervous. I guess is the best way to say that. I mean, maybe there's a good reason for doing it, but you know, some of these things are, you know, sort of required. So it would really surprise me if they didn't do any of that.
James, if you don't want to be the jerk, I'll be happy to be.
Well, you might want to, because I'm reluctant to say anything, but it seems really odd to me.
Lynn, honestly, you should have high expectations for the services that your broker provides. You know, one of the challenges that I faced when I got started out here in the Seattle area was trying to find a broker, you know, because of my friendship with James, I'm used to a certain level of you know, service, as well as the fact that I'm, you know, I come from the engineering world. I work in accounting now. I'm a nerd. You know, I like data, and finding a real estate broker that can accommodate my level of need for statistical data the way that James does in Colorado is really hard. It really is. And so you have to evaluate those sort of things when you're looking for a broker. You got to determine what's important to you. What level of service do you need? For example, and I use this example all the time. if you're the kind of person that needs a buyer's agent that will pull up 20 properties off the MLS and drive you around for an entire weekend looking at them, James ain't your guy. Okay. But but you got to be aware of those things. So yeah, I'd be wary of an agent that's not going to deliver the level of service, the types of information, et cetera, that you need.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I'd just be it would just raise a red flag for me, Lynn. It's not that I would never work with someone like that. I mean, I would want to know why and kind of what's going on, but I don't know. We'll talk a lot more about that because we're going to go into some detail. So our exclusive right to buy listing contract here in Northern Colorado is both exclusive and irrevocable by default. So what that means is if you have a exclusive right to buy listing contract with one real estate agent, you can't have another exclusive right to buy listing contract with a different agent for the same area. Now, there are some exceptions. For example, let's say Jason said, hey, listen, I want to buy a property in Fort Collins, and I want to work with you, James, in order to go buy that property in Fort Collins. I might send him over an exclusive right to buy listing contract that says I'm going to represent him and help him buy a house in Fort Collins. But he could also go and say, hey, listen, I also want to buy a property in Greeley. And he knows that, I don't want to drive to Greeley, as an example. And so he says, okay, I'm going to go hire another agent. I'm going to have another exclusive right to buy listing contract, and I'm going to have that with that agent in Greeley. And so he has two agreements, but they are kind of unique geographic areas where they're saying, for Fort Collins, James is my agent. For Greeley, this other person is my real estate agent in that way. Okay? Now, what do I mean by irrevocable? It means that you can't just say, I don't want to be in this agreement anymore and have it go away. Okay? The normal exclusive right to buy listing contract is irrevocable. It means that you just can't just pull it back and say, I'm not interested anymore. You're contractually obligated for the term of the agreement. Now, there are some exceptions, and we're going to go over those tonight. Plus, for my clients, I actually handwrite in additional provisions, a special clause that allows them to terminate the agreement and end it at any time. And so I'll show you what that is and why I do it. I'll kind of explain in detail why I do it that way. But it's by default, the way it's written normally, it is both exclusive and irrevocable. Okay.
Hey, James, real quick question.
Yeah.
I know these questions kind of extend our time and kills the 2-hour time limit here, but I think other people think about these things too. When looking at something such as the FHA 100-mile limit, right? You're in Fort Collins. If I'm looking in Colorado Springs, how does it work? If I've been working for you for the first couple Nomad purchases, yep. I want to take advantage of the 100-mile rule for FHA and go buy in Colorado Springs.
Yep.
How does the buyer's agency relationship work with you? Because I've got a contract with you versus where I'm going, because you're licensed in all of Colorado.
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I'm going to cover a little bit of it here on this slide that I've got up, but the basic idea is I have a service area that I'm competent in, that I can actually practice in, that I feel comfortable. So, for example, I feel really comfortable Fort Collins, Loveland, Windsor area, a little bit less comfortable, but I still feel comfortable in Greeley and Evans, but I'm not going down to Colorado Springs. I'm not even going to Denver.
Right.
And so, if you wanted to go buy a property in Denver and we were under an agreement, I would probably try to, just as a service to you, put you in touch with another agent in Colorado Springs. And, I might call Norberto or whoever is in Colorado Springs. And I might say to him, I've got a client up here. He's thinking about buying in Colorado Springs. Can I refer him to you? And as a real estate agent, if you're a licensed real estate agent, you can actually refer somebody from, up here to Colorado Springs, and you actually do get paid part of it's actually negotiated, but it's usually part of the commission that is earned. And so I could actually earn a percentage referral fee commission on, somebody working with another agent in another market. And so that's one thing that we can do. It doesn't come up that often. I mean, for me, because we're doing kind of nationwide classes, I can definitely refer you to agents in other markets and help you with that. And I can actually get a little bit of a referral fee for doing that. But I'm trying to find you the best agent to work with in that market and who can help you, and someone who understands Nomad, and I'm willing to kind of stick out and support you remotely by teaching the classes and stuff like that. But I know that may not have answered your question directly, but there's some things that are related to that in this kind of slide here. So maybe I'll go on and come back if I don't answer it kind of when we do that. So basically the exclusive right to buy listing contract, it's set for a certain period of time. It goes from the start date to an end date. And usually for me, I usually set it at a year. So, I might say January 24th of 2017 to January 24th of 2018, and it'll be a year-long period, or the start date to the completion of purchase. And it's really whichever one comes first. So let's say we have an agreement and I say, I'm going to help you for the next year, Jason, buy a house. And I do it January 24th of this year through January 24th of 2018. And 2 months from now, you find a house and you actually go under contract and then you close on the property and you buy it. Our agreement ends when you buy the property.
Right.
So as soon as you buy the property, technically we're not under an agreement anymore. And if you wanted to buy a second property with me, let's say you went and you bought a Nomad property and then you actually wanted to buy a second investment property, 6 months from now, we would do a new agreement at that point. And we would set up a brand new agreement that says, okay, start date is today and the end date is either a year from now or whenever you purchase a house, whatever comes first. And that's normal in our market. Okay. So you're really committing to either one deal or the end date. And we need a new agreement for each property that you do want to buy. But here's the interesting thing about my particular way I do the agreement and why I do it this way. So in the normal agreement we have, it's either for a year or when you buy a property. However, what I do is I handwrite in the additional provisions section that the buyer has the right to change the end dates of this agreement in section 3.6, which is a section that has the end dates in it, at any time with written notice, and email is acceptable, to stop working with broker. Here's the idea, Jason. You and I are working together. I sit down with you. I say, hey, listen, I'm happy to help you buy a Nomad property, and we're going to do these classes, and I'm going to kind of teach you how to do it. And, I realize, I want to work with you for a long time. I'm in it for a long-term relationship. But if you decide after 2 months, we go out, we see some properties, and you're like, I don't really like you, James. You kind of piss me off, or it's not really fun to be out with you, or I don't think you really know what you're doing, or any reason at all. It doesn't even have to be a reason. You just say, I'm not interested in working with you anymore. You can email me and say, hey, I think we should end the agreement. I'm going to reply back, no worries at all. End date of the agreement is changed to today. I'll go ahead and fill out paperwork. I'll send that over to you for you to sign. And then basically the end date itself is there and the agreement is terminated. It ends that day. Okay. Now, why would I do that? Why would I go through a lot of effort of sitting down and educating you and kind of helping you with this process only to say, hey, you can end this agreement at any time? What's the thought process, do you think, Jason, behind that?
Well, I'd say two things. First of all, you're just a good guy. And no, I'm serious.
Okay.
And anybody that'll just sit down with you and buy you a burrito, you'll let them pick your brain. So there's that.
Within reason. Yes.
So there's that. But also, and I do this in the tax world, is not everybody is a good client for me. I have a very specific set of criteria for the IRS cases that I would accept. Okay. And they need to be in a certain industry. They need to owe a certain amount of money to the IRS. They need to have certain resources, et cetera. And I built myself a specialization.
But why would I let you out? Let's say you are in my specialization. Why would I say, Jason, you are Nomad. You want to buy 10 properties. Why would I say, hey, listen, it's not working out. That's great. You don't need to work with me anymore. Why do you think that?
Well, if you want to get down to brass tacks, maybe you just think I'm a jerk.
Well, that's possible too. But let's say I still like you and you just don't like me. And I'll kind of answer the question here. So what I don't want to happen is I've been going to the same restaurant for 16 years, 17 years now, okay,
Mm-hmm.
basically 2000 through 2016. You know where I go every day for lunch at 12 o'clock, okay? If you're not happy, seriously, if you're not, you live in a relatively small town. It's like 150,000 people. So, if you're not happy with me, and I'm like, no, Jason, I'm not going to let you out of this agreement. I'm going to force you to buy a house with me. You cannot get out. You have to go buy a house with me. You sign this agreement. You're going to do it. Okay. Now, the next day, I'm going and having lunch. I'm having a burrito with, Elijah or something like that. And we're sitting down and we're talking about, wholesaling or doing deals or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, irate Jason comes in the door because he knows I'm going to be there at high noon. He knows exactly the restaurant I go to because I go to the exact same one. And he comes in all pissed off and says, hey, I don't know who you are, but you don't work with this guy. Right. I signed an agreement with him, and he will not let me out of that agreement. He's a scumbag.
Yep.
So why wouldn't I just say, hey, listen, you don't want to work with me? No problem at all. You go ahead and you can do whatever you want. Go work with whoever you want. I believe in abundance. There's plenty of business out there. I don't need someone pissed off. I don't need to look over my shoulder when I'm having lunch with my son or lunch with a good friend of mine or a client. I don't want that bad will around. And so I just don't do it.
You know what, James? There are other realtors that don't hold that same attitude.
Yeah, but that's the Nomad way.
So no, I get that.
If you're in another market and you're kind of wanting to work with nomads, I plead with you, please adopt this philosophy. And I'm doing it on recording so that other nomads can hear. If you're kind of coming across as I'm not going to let you out, that's not good. That's not part of the Nomad philosophy. It's not part of the Nomad way. We really want to be, doing goodwill to people, giving value. And, while there is, how do I say this? There is not a direct expectation for return by giving all these classes and teaching these videos and kind of doing all this stuff for free. Really, it's largely about putting good out into the universe, and a certain percentage of you I just know, because I've been doing this since 2003 when we started the club, a certain percentage of people that are going to watch this video or kind of come to this class are going to decide, hey, James, I honestly understand what you're saying. I get it. I kind of want to work with you because I've not heard anyone take the time and share this with me and do that. And you're going to get business from that. Just like other people in other markets are going to get business by doing that. And I'm not going to get every single one, but it doesn't matter. There's no expectation. It's not like quid pro quo. You're coming on here, you have to work with me. It is, I'm coming on here, I'm adding value, and you are going to opt to work with me just because you see it and you feel it and you understand it. So that's kind of the philosophy and why we do it.
Can I put that a slightly different way?
Sure.
I know that this is a family show, and I'll keep it PG-13. But another way to look at it is the old phrase: "Just because you have one doesn't mean you need to be one."
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Hey, I just noticed Chris had a Q&A question here. Chris, does the agreement stand for only one purchase per area? So once you purchase a property, is the agreement terminated complete? Yep. So basically, Chris, if you go back to the slide here, it's the start date to the completion of purchase, or the start date to the end date, whichever comes first. So the agreement, at least here in Colorado, is one purchase. And so if you wanted to buy two properties, you would need to actually do it twice.
James, as a broker, are you actually even allowed to extend it to 2 or 3, 4 purchases, or no?
I'm sure you can write in additional provisions and change what it says in there, but I wouldn't. I would just do a separate agreement.
Got it. Okay.
I just do another one. So. Okay, so continuing on here. So what happens if a real estate agent is representing the seller and you're interested in buying the property with the same agent? So Jason, let's just hypothetically say you're selling a property, okay, and I'm representing you, okay? So you own a property, you're trying to sell it, and I've got a really good friend of mine that wants to buy your property, okay? But I'm representing you in your best interest. What happens in those situations? I can't represent the seller and you as the seller and this friend of mine as the buyer at the same time. So what we do is we can do one thing, we can do one option, or I can refer you out. And so basically what happens is this. I can either say, hey, Jason, I was starting off and I was representing you, but I've got this other person who wants to buy the same property. What we can do is, if I have your permission, I can change who I represent from representing you to being a transaction broker, the referee who just helps you and this particular buyer buy the property, okay? There's a lot of people that do that. They're very successful at doing it. I personally don't think that's a good idea. I would much rather represent one side or the other because I want to be able to discuss strategy with you. I want to be able to discuss pros and cons and talk to you about things that are important to me, and I think I want to advise you. And so I don't usually do transaction brokerage. I'm trying to remember if I've done it within the last couple of years. I doubt I have, but basically I would rather represent one side or the other. And so I would probably refer that buyer out to another real estate agent, have them represented by their own agent. I would still represent you, Jason, as the seller in that situation. And then we would come together, do the transaction. They would have their own agent representing them. I would be representing you, and we would just work it out that way. So that's what my preference would be. There's some really complicated things that come up though, okay? So not to go into, you gotta probably do a 2-hour class just on this, the agency stuff. But let's say I'm representing you, who you've been a good family friend for what? How long have we known each other? Like 13, 12 years?
Yeah, 12, 13 years, something like that.
Somewhere around there. So we early on, 2004, 2005, something like that. So we've known each other for a long time. You're a good family friend. And so I know a lot about your personal financial situation. I know about your motivations and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I would have a hard time not representing you as an agent. I wouldn't have a hard time representing you as a transaction broker and not being involved. Now, let's say my other really good friend who's bought, I don't know, a bunch of properties with me wants to also be the buyer in this transaction. I would have a hard time being a transaction broker and not knowing what's going on with him. I mean, I've represented him in multiple transactions. I know how he thinks. I know what he wants. I know his financial situation. So it'd be really hard for me to step back and be that kind of thing. So I would have to refer them out. The challenge I still have is I still know how they think. I still know how you think. And so now we're negotiating, even though they have their own agent, it's still kind of funky. So when we work with nomads, and agents in other markets can do whatever they want, but when we work with nomads, we tend to work a lot more with buyers because nomads aren't selling a lot of properties. They're acquiring properties and holding them as rentals. And so I would say pretty easily 90% of my business is on the buy side, okay? And so most of the time I'm not having this conflict where I'm representing sellers and buyers in the same transaction. It's almost all on the buy side. And so it doesn't come up nearly as much, okay? But this section here, 4.3.1.2, talks about what happens if I'm already representing a seller and you want to buy the same property. It explains what happens in that situation, and it's important for you to understand and read that, okay? So we'll talk about this more when we're discussing using one or multiple agents to find deals. It's a slide later on.
Just throw in, I actually passed on a house that was a pocket listing for the broker that I use here locally, because I didn't want to get into this transaction brokerage situation. And it sucked because it was a great house. It was in a great neighborhood. And the kind of properties that I like. I like the trees and the plants and, the garden type settings. I actually called it the garden house. And I passed on that house because of this exact problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely comes up, and I don't want to get people worried because it's a relatively small percentage of the time that it comes up. Unless you happen to pick an agent that has a ton of listings that represents a lot of sellers, then you have a likelihood of coming up. And for those that are thinking, we may talk about this a little later, but those that think, I don't want to go and have an agent representing me. I want to go directly to the agent representing the seller. I want to make an offer because I think I can get a better deal by working directly with the agent who represents the seller. If I'm on the buy side, I personally think that's a mistake, but
yeah,
it's kind of my philosophy.
Yeah.
All right, so some section 4.3.2, transaction broker must perform the duties described in section 5 and facilitate purchase transactions without being an advocate or agent for either party. That's coming right from the agreement itself. And so, in Colorado, that's what the rule is. In other cities or other markets, rather, you want to check with what it says in yours. I mentioned before, I prefer to work with clients as buyer's agent. And whether buyer's agent or transaction broker, the broker must perform uniform duties. So buyer's agent have some additional duties beyond the uniform duties, but all agents, regardless of whether they're TB, which is transaction broker, or buyer's agent, they have uniform duties that they must perform. Okay, brokerage firm's fee. So how does a agent who is representing the buyer get paid? One of the great things, and I have a slide coming up here about this, one of the great things about the real estate business is, the buyer's agent, in a lot of cases, is paid an amount from the seller already. So you're not coming out of pocket when you're buying a property, Jason. In the overwhelming majority of cases, you're not coming out of pocket to pay an additional fee. The fee is already included in the price, and the seller's agent is actually saying, we're going to pay you this amount to the buyer's agent if you bring a buyer. So that's the nice thing about it.
Right.
As we said before, the compensation between real estate brokers, whether it's on the sell side or the buy side, it's negotiable. Okay. But when you're talking about buyers, most of the time, there's not a lot to negotiate because you're already getting paid from the seller. So it's not there. And we talked about the practical consideration before. You may say to me, hey, listen, James, I want to pay you $100 to do this. I have every right to say no. So a lot of times I'm just not going to do it if it's not worth a reasonable amount for my time that's invested in the effort in doing it. You can still come to classes, you can still do that stuff, but I just would say, listen, it's just not worth it for me to kind of get involved. Maybe you should just go and do it yourself, or hire an attorney, or find another agent that's willing to do it for $100 because it's just not for me. So that's kind of where it is.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
I know this is not as much of an issue in Fort Collins, but where I live and I'm buying, we have a huge inventory still of the foreclosure properties that are going through the the Home Path program.
Sure.
So those have a lot of restrictions on them in terms of the bidding process, blah blah blah.
Yep.
So for those properties, if I had an exclusive buyer agency relationship with you,
yep,
but the contract with the government REO property doesn't work, how do you get compensated? How do you get your full compensation?
That's a great question. So if it's something, I personally will never stand in the way of a client doing a deal. So if you need me to step away in order for you to buy a property, I'm totally happy and willing to do that. And I think that's just a good policy to have. If it's something where I still can get paid and I can work it out, I'll definitely have a conversation with you because I'm a long-term relationship guy and I want to have that. But if it's something between you can't do the property unless I step aside, I will totally step aside and let you do it, even if that means having it go through the listing agent or whatever it is in that case.
Okay.
Yeah. So as part of the exclusive right to buy listing contract, the real estate broker can be paid one of like 4 ways. Number one is the success fee. And that's the most common. It basically will be that when you buy a house, there's a fee that is paid to the real estate broker, whether that's a percentage or a fixed dollar amount, because it's actually a blank on there. You can do either one. And that's usually how it's worked out. You can also be paid hourly as a real estate agent. So you say, listen, Mr. Real Estate Agent, I don't want you to actually get paid a commission on this. I want to pay you hourly for the work that you do. And some agents will agree to do that. You can get paid a retainer. And then you kind of, get paid, you kind of tick off the amount that you've gotten from the retainer as work is done. And then, when the retainer is done, you get another retainer and you kind of do that. And then of course, at the end of the agreement, you kind of rebate whatever's left over from the retainer, unless there's something else in there that says you get to keep it or whatever the agreement is. So you can definitely do it that way, or other. And if you can get a real estate agent to agree to kind of help you buy a house in exchange for a car or in exchange for, bartering services or something like that, you can mark off other and agree what the payment will be to that real estate agent to do it. And so it's all negotiable and it's all done on that one form. So you can do whatever you want on there. And I'll tell you, the overwhelming majority of these things are success fees. A percentage of the purchase price when you buy a property. That is the most common one by far.
Wait. Are you telling me that I could have traded tax advice for brokerage advice this whole time?
You could have. Yeah, you knew that.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So another thing I want to clarify too, because I've had people ask me this before. So do I need to come up with the real estate broker fee plus the down payment? And the answer is no. Most of the time, it is going to be that the fee for the real estate agent is already included, baked in to the price that you're buying the property. There are some exceptions. For example, one exception is sometimes with for sale by owner properties, the for sale by owner will say to you, this is the price without a real estate agent. And if you want your real estate agent to represent you, you need to add their fee on top of that. And in those cases, you would need to figure out either to raise the price and include it in the price, or pay your real estate agent outside of the actual transaction itself, okay? But those are really uncommon. Up here in Northern Colorado, for sale by owners represent about 3% of the transaction. So about 97% of them are actually in the MLS, okay? Now there's also a section, we're not gonna go into it, but there's also a section in the exclusive rights to buy listing contract for negotiating a lease. So the real estate agent could be paid for negotiating a lease. We're not gonna cover that here. All right, so success fee. Since this is the most common one, we're going to talk a little bit about it. If you were going to do an agreement with me, I usually do 3%. It's very common, but it's all negotiable. If you're buying a very low-cost property, like less than $100,000 in our market, I might, in some cases, set a minimum. So I might say to you, hey, listen, it is 3%, but it has to be at least $4,000. Otherwise, I may just it may not be good for me to work with you in this case, and I recommend this person for you to work with instead. They'd be willing to do it for less or something like that. Okay, and so you would do that. So a lot of times I set a minimum. But if you're doing normal properties here in town, it's hard to find a property under 150,000 in Fort Collins, Loveland area. I think you're going to be totally fine with the 3% in most of these cases. Okay. Now here's an interesting thing. I'd like to read you the section as to when this is earned, because there's some really unusual things that actually read in the agreement for exclusive right to buy. So section 7.1.3 here in Colorado, when earned, when's the success fee earned, and when payable. So it says when earned, when payable, purchase. The success fee is earned by the brokerage firm upon the purchase of the property and is payable upon closing of the transaction. No big surprises. The broker gets paid when you close on the property, and it's payable at the time of closing. Okay, it seems really straightforward. Here's where it becomes interesting. So if any transaction fails to close as a result of the seller's default, So the seller of the property decides they're not going to sell the property. Okay, they're in default. With no fault on the part of the buyer, the success fee will be waived. So seller says, I don't want to sell it anymore. Yeah, there's a problem. The buyer may go after them or do whatever they're going to do, but there's no success fee earned. The real estate broker is not warrant a fee for doing that. However, if any transaction fails to close as a result of buyer's default, in whole or in part, the success fee will not be waived. Such fee is payable upon buyer's default, but not later than the date that the closing of the transaction was to have occurred. So Jason, we're under contract to buy a property.
Mm-hmm.
You decide, I don't like that property anymore. I think I'm just not going to show up at closing, or I'm just going to, refuse to cooperate in getting the loan. And so the lender's going to kind of say, you actually were not acting in good faith. You didn't qualify for the loan. I asked you for these documents. Otherwise, you would have been qualified. So really, you did not close. You were in default because of your own fault. You basically chose not to close.
Yep.
So the real estate broker in that case would still be due a commission.
Yes.
Okay. So
and
realize
the
what you're signing.
lender is also due fees as well.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I don't know about that side, but that's interesting. So here's the kind of point about this though. So same situation. Jason's under contract. He decides he's not going to buy the property. I'm due a fee. Am I going to go after Jason for, let's say he's looking at a $300,000 property. Am I going to go after Jason for $9,000? Jason, what do you think? You know me pretty well. You've known me for, 12 years, whatever it is. Do you think I'm going after you for $9K?
If it was me, I would probably assume no.
You think you're special in that I wouldn't go after you, but I would go after someone else? You really think that?
No, you know what? I think that you would probably base it on, if I'd been a jerk through the entire process, if I had been stringing you along, if I had made you drive me to 900 properties, seriously, how many properties have I made you send me from Red Feather Lakes? Right?
Well, we've gotten to see a lot of properties together.
Right. But I'm just saying, if there comes a point, right, where everybody breaks. So for the most part, I'd probably say, yeah, you probably wouldn't do it. But I could see there's a scenario where even Mr. Nice Guy James is just like, you know what? Screw you, guy.
Yeah. I will tell you, it would have to be an extreme case.
Yeah.
And I would tell you 99.9% of the time, this has never really come up, but 99.9% of the time, I have a much longer term philosophy, right? You decide this house isn't for you. I'm not thinking, okay, he owes me $9K. I'm going after him for the $9K. My thought is, great, let's regroup. Let's go ahead and find you another house that you do like because I want to be here to serve you. And as far as like nomads go, and this sounds like so plotting and, kind of evil, putting dollars on people sort of thing. But here's a very practical, pragmatic kind of approach when I think about this. Jason, you just told me you want to be a nomad. And in my mind, you tell me, as a nomad, I want to buy not one property and then I'm going to live there for 10 years and then I decide to sell it and buy another one. A nomad is probably going to buy 10 properties over 10 years, right? That's kind of like the plan we lay out. A lot of people say, I get it, let's go do it. I got minimum down, I'm going to kind of do this model. So instead of this being worth $9,000, me kind of going after you and pissing you off is really a $90,000 decision for me.
Correct.
Right? Because if I go and I say, no problem, Jason, I totally understand. Sometimes we pick houses, we get all emotional about them and, we go under contract and something changes and, it just turns out that's not a good property. And so, yeah, I'm due a fee, but I'm not going after you for that. Let's just kind of regroup. And whenever you're ready to start looking at properties again, I'm here to serve you. I'm a long-term relationship guy. Keep coming to class. Let's do it together. Right?
Yep.
Because 10 years from now, you've now bought 10 properties. And I could have gone and maybe gotten $9K out of you. But now, from a very practical, pragmatic standpoint, I do a really good job serving you and helping you along the way. And now you're a $90,000 client to me, not a $9,000 client. And I haven't pissed off someone in the community.
Well, a couple of things. Two considerations there. First of all, you've actually done this. Remember that freaking house I fell in love with, the new construction one in South Loveland? It was like $350. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I would still love to buy that house.
Okay.
But I didn't follow through on the whole thing, right? That was when I was first starting to look at this whole Nomad thing. Remember?
Okay. I have vague memory. I mean, we've done so much stuff together.
I know. But at the same time, people need to also understand that their lender may have some upfront fees that cannot be waived.
Oh, like appraisal and stuff like that?
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Yeah. And inspection. I mean, you're gonna have some fees out.
Documentation fees, appraisal, but also earnest money, which is
probably
the biggest chunk. It's what, $3,000 probably for your area.
Yeah, let's actually clarify that. And we're going to talk about earnest money later, and I'll talk about what the percentages are. But in this case, we're saying you're in default, not that you went under contract, you had an inspection done, you decided that on the inspection I'm not going to buy, and you terminated based on inspection. In that case, I am not due a success fee.
No. We're talking inspection was fine, I've got the loan, and I just said, hey, James, you know what? I'm going to move to Mesa instead of Fort Collins.
I'm just not showing up for closing. They keep the earnest money. I'm in default. That's the difference.
You're losing your earnest money deposit.
Yeah. So you'll lose the earnest money in that case. But if you do a normal inspection, you can't come to terms. In most cases, you're getting earnest money back. And we're going to talk about that. There's a slide on that here shortly.
Okay.
All right. So we talked about practical considerations. By the way, if anyone has questions, feel free to chime in. I know we're going through some pretty heavy stuff here, but please let me know if you've got anything else. So who will pay the brokerage firm's fee? This is part of the agreement. Getting back to this. So there are three choices, and they're check boxes in the listing contract itself. One of them is 7.3.1, listing brokerage firm or seller may pay. Buyer is obligated to pay. Broker is authorized and instructed to request payment of the brokerage firm's fee from the listing brokerage firm or seller. Buyer is obligated to pay any portion of brokerage firm's fee which is not paid by the listing brokerage firm or seller. So this is normally what I check off. And I'm going to read it again. Listing brokerage firm or seller may pay. Buyer is obligated to pay. So why would I, someone who is what apparently seems very pro-buyer, kind of very long-term relationship, but why would I say to a buyer, hey, listen, if the listing firm doesn't pay, you are obligated to pay? Why would I go and be all crazy like that? You have any idea? Well, let me tell you. Okay. So I typically use that because if you as the buyer are obligated to pay, then I can go and negotiate on your behalf to get the seller or the seller's brokerage to pay if it's not the normal amount we've already agreed to. So let's say the seller's brokerage agreed to pay 2%, and you and I have an agreement that says, hey, listen, we're agreeing that I'm going to be paid 3% from you and that I should go get that from the seller's agent. And if they don't pay it, you're going to make up the difference. Now I can negotiate on your behalf because you're going to have to make up the difference, and I can try to get them to pay the full 3%. So we can go in there and ask for it in the contract. If I hadn't checked this box, I would not be able to go and ask for them to make up the difference in commission. Okay, because I can't be negotiating my fee in your normal contract unless I'm doing it for your benefit. Okay, so that's the big tricky part about this whole thing. Now, practical matter. We agree that I'm going to be paid 3%. The seller's agent says, I'm going to pay you 2%. I try and negotiate and get them up to 3%. And they say, no, go pound sand. We're in a hot market. I got 10 offers. We're only paying 2% on this particular one. Am I going to go and, Jason, let's say you're my buyer. Am I going to go to you and say, hey, listen, we agreed that you were going to pay me 3%, and I want you to pay me that 1% difference? Am I going to go and force you to pay me that 1% difference?
Knowing James Orr, probably not.
Yeah, so I probably am not either, right? Because I know long-term relationship. I will tell you, like we'll go through the property, and I'll be letting them know, say, listen, they're only paying 2% on this. It could affect your ability to get the offer if I kind of ask for it, or let's go and ask for it. But if they don't pay it, what's the situation? And I may tell you, I'm only going to get paid 2% on this. Of course, if you want to voluntarily pay me the 1%, I will absolutely cash that check, and I appreciate it. It means a lot to me that you would go and do that. However, I'm not going after you. I'm not going to force you to do it. And if you don't feel as though I kind of quote unquote earned it and that you're willing to pay it, that's fine. You don't have to. I'm not going after you for it. Okay? So I'm not going to force the issue, but at the same time, multiple clients have voluntarily paid that difference after the fact. Okay? So just realize that happens. All right. Here's the other two options. That was option number one. Option number two, 7.3.2. Buyer's obligated to pay brokerage firm's fee. That's it. And usually we would use this if you were like buying a property outside the MLS. If you were going to do a for sale by owner and we had an agreement where I was going to represent you on one single for sale by owner property, instead of saying, hey, listen, the listing agent may pay, but you're obligated to pay, I may just say, hey, listen, this is for sale by owner. They're not agreeing to pay. You're going to pay me straight up. And in those cases, we would expect to do payment on that. Okay? So that's one way we would do that. Option number three, 7.3.3. Listing brokerage firm or seller may pay. Buyer is not obligated to pay. Broker is authorized to obtain payment of brokerage firm's fee from the listing brokerage firm or seller, provided broker has fulfilled buyer's obligation. Provided buyer has fulfilled buyer's obligations in his buyer listing contract, buyer is not obligated to pay brokerage firm's fee. This basically says, hey, listen, if the seller is offering 3%, great, have at it, you do that. If they're not paying that, I'm not paying you anything as the buyer. Okay, that's what that one says. Plus, if no box is checked, if the real estate broker or you didn't check any of the boxes on that particular form, basically 7.3.3, the one where the buyer is not obligated to pay, that is the one that is selected as default. Okay, my personal opinion is a real estate agent, and I check this occasionally, like if we're dealing with a property, you say, listen, I want to go buy this property, and we have a buyer's agency agreement, it's on one single property, and they're offering 3%, I will probably just mark off 7.3.3 because it's already agreed to, the fee is already established, it's pretty easy and clear cut, right? But yeah, if it's a more generalized one, any property in Fort Collins, and we don't know what the fee is going to be, I will almost always do 7.3.1. In most cases, real estate agents are checking off 7.3.3. I think it's a mistake. I think that if a strong real estate agent is going to check off the box that says, I want to be able to negotiate on your behalf if it comes up short. But then I think that also having a real estate agent that is not going to force you to pay that difference, in my opinion, is important. But I could totally see making the argument that, hey, listen, I want to earn my 3%. I'm worth 3%. And if you're not going to do that, let's just agree up front that we're not going to work together, not that we're going to have you short me later. I could see that argument too. That's not my personal philosophy.
James, have you ever been to the closing table with an agent that was trying to think of a different word. Sorry. There was a hard ass about this particular provision.
Well, I don't really know about it, right? Because a lot of times it's already worked out, and they're having these conversations kind of behind closed doors.
Okay.
I'm not seeing it discussed at the closing table.
Okay.
In fact, I can't think of a time when I've seen that there. And in Colorado, at least, you're not supposed to hold up closing to have a kind of a commission dispute. They will get mad.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So we don't do it.
How's it handled then? Outside of closing?
Well, I think it's after closing.
Right, but I mean, is there a mediation process or?
I don't do it, so I don't know. I would assume so. I would assume you'd have to go and say, hey, listen, I was owed 3%. I only got paid 2%. I'd like to be paid the rest, and you kind of push it. But I've never done it, so I don't know. Yeah. All right. So here's a really interesting slide. Real estate world is very fascinating because what if this? I think it's a Lamborghini, but what if this Lamborghini costs the exact same amount as this junker on the right? What happens if you could choose, you say, listen, which car do you want? They both cost exactly the same. What's interesting is in the real estate world, that's exactly what's happening, okay? Whether you choose a brand new agent, never done a transaction, fresh out of real estate school, all enthusiastic, but no actual practical real world knowledge, or you get a veteran agent who's got 20 years experience representing buyers, buying exactly the type of house you have with superior knowledge, superior market knowledge, superior contract knowledge, all the latest tools and gadgets and everything else. And if they cost exactly the same, why would you choose the brand new agent and not the very experienced person who can help you? With real estate agents, they are the same because a lot of times the real estate the seller is going to pay 3%, whether it's a brand new agent or super experienced agent. And that's all you're paying. It's not like the experienced agent's going to say, I want an additional $5,000 on top of the 3%. Most of the time they're saying, I'll do it for 3%. So it's pretty fascinating that we have this come up. Does that sort of make sense, Jason?
Yeah, but also this actually goes back to kind of what we opened with for, getting your license versus not getting your license, and if you're new, et cetera. that does open a conversation there.
I'm not sure I understand. What do you mean?
Well, so there are folks, myself included, this is what you opened with, that I'm thinking about getting my license again.
Sure.
Because I'm going to do at least one transaction a year, and I'm actually thinking about doing some 20% properties and doing 2 or 3 transactions a year.
Oh, hold on a second. I thought for a second that you were going to get your real estate license to represent clients, not to just save yourself money on doing deals. Is that not the case?
Well, yeah, but how many am I going to do? 3, 4? It's not going to be my full-time thing. I've got my day job, right?
Yeah. Some people would argue that you probably should not represent yourself in those cases because you're not knowledgeable and you're just going to.
Sure.
Yeah. So you'd want to get someone who's super experienced. It's basically
I bring it up. It's worth talking about, I think.
I think so too. So if you're only going to do your transactions and you're not doing that many, I think you should go hire the best agent you can find who's going to help you. And
I agree.
And not just try to save yourself, some money here and there. I think it's penny wise, pound foolish in a lot of ways. But yeah, if you're not going to go and get that experience, yeah, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't go get your license. So yeah. All right. So does that help answer that question?
Yeah.
So now you're not going to get your license in, right?
Well,
we'll see. All right. Exclusive right to buy listing contract. So we talked before about, if you want to, you can go ahead and email me and decide that you are not going to work with me anymore, and an email is fine, and we change the end date of the agreement. So we're going to talk about holdover period. What holdover period is what happens, Jason, if you just say, hey, listen, let's go look at a bunch of properties. We go look at properties for 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, you're like, I saw a property with James, but the listing is about to expire on that. I happened to talk to the seller afterward, and he said, we're probably going to not list it again. We're probably going to try for sale by owner. And, you and the seller kind of formed this little, hatch this master plot about how, if you wait a week, I'll go ahead and, I'll go list it and I'll sell it to you for less the commissions because I'll net about the same and you can buy it and you'll save money and I'll save money. Sounds like a really good plan. You say, no worries. I can actually terminate my agreement with James at any time. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, totally.
So this is what happens, okay? You say to me, hey, listen, let's go ahead and end our agreement, and our agreement ends. We don't need to work together anymore. But this holdover period kind of comes into play. It says it deals with the agreement, it deals with when the agreement ends and the brokerage firm's fee. So typically, commission is owed if they negotiated or sent you the property and you end up buying it within 90 days. That's the typical holdover period, which means if we went and we walked through a property and you said, okay, I like this, our agreement ended, and anytime within 90 days you decided you wanted to go and buy that property, then a fee is due. Okay? So you can't just go and end the agreement and go buy a property the next day or the next week or the next month. You got to wait a full 90 days until our agreement is over before you can go buy a property that I showed you. Now, if you happen to go see another property that I didn't show you, that's totally fine. Mm-hmm. But if we work together and I helped you find the property, then you are agreeing to pay that fee on that property. And that's what the holdover period talks about. There's an interesting side note to this thing. So there's a checkbox under holdover period, and it basically says, if I go and I work with another real estate agent, and that real estate agent shows me the same property that you showed me, do I still owe you a commission, or do I just owe the new real estate agent a commission?
Well,
and there's a checkbox to determine whether or not you do owe a commission to the first one, or you don't owe a commission to the first one. Okay.
Do you normally check it?
I think my default is not to check it.
Why?
Well, my thought is if you're going to go work with another real estate agent, I'm not going to try to make enemies and force you to say, hey, listen, you bought another property. If you're working with another agent and they're going to show you that property to help you buy it, that's fine with me. Okay. I don't want to start a fight. I don't want to get involved. If you're going to go and use another agent, you're probably not the client I want long term anyway.
You're a good guy. You're just a good guy.
So let's talk about that for a minute.
Seriously.
I know what you're saying, but it's very pragmatic, very just like thinking it through. It's like, okay, I could go and force you to do this, and I could be a nice guy about it, but it's really, I just don't want to piss people off and have bad mojo out there. I'd rather, my reputation is worth more than $9K.
Sure.
That's kind of how I look at it. So, all right. Limitation on third-party compensation. So this is in the agreement too, still exclusive right to buy listing agreement. There's a whole bunch of lenders there's a whole bunch of, title companies. There's a whole bunch of inspectors in my referral directory in my book, this book that I've got here, okay? So if you go and you use one of these guys, are they going to give me a kickback? Are they going to be like, oh, how'd you hear about me? Oh, you heard about me from James Orr, his referral directory. Oh, good, I'm glad. Now I got to go pay James $100 because he recommended you use me. Is that happening?
Probably not.
No. So we are required to disclose if I'm getting any type of compensation from a third party for recommending their services. So I can't recommend a certain lender and get a kickback. Can't recommend a certain title company and get a kickback. Can't recommend an inspection. Can't recommend any attorneys. No one can I recommend to you where I'm going to be financially compensated for that recommendation. Now, there is an exception. If the real estate broker has you fill out an affiliated business relationship disclosure that says we have an arrangement with ABC Title Company, if you use ABC Title Company, we will get compensated in some form. Maybe we own part of it, or maybe we'll get some type of fee or something like that. But if they give you that disclosure and disclose that to you, they can. If I'm going to get paid from somebody, I need to disclose to you in writing that I'm going to be compensated by them. And I will tell you, I just, as a matter of course, do not get compensated by those parties. So if I'm recommending a lender, it's because I think they're going to be the best lender for you. It's not because I'm going to get compensated. If I'm recommending an inspector or title company or attorney or anyone else, it is not because I'm being paid. Okay? So just realize that up front. Now, the buyer's obligations to the broker. This is what the buyer is obligated to do working with the broker. It's right basically in the agreement itself. They must conduct all negotiations through the broker. So you can't go and linger after showing and then wait for the seller to come home and say, hey, listen, I'm interested in buying your house. My broker's not competent. I really want to just talk to you and we can work this out and make a deal. Okay, you're supposed to actually have all the negotiations go through the real estate broker. You're not supposed to do any of that yourself. And sometimes sellers will do it too. They'll reach around and say, hey, listen, I happen to know someone from my church or someone from my work, and I'm just going to reach out to you directly and we're going to work this out. Okay. Refer all communications received from brokers, prospective sellers, or any other source to broker. So you're supposed to refer those back. And then you're also supposed to disclose if you're working with any other broker. So I should know if you have any other agency agreements with anyone else. Okay. And we're going to talk about that in a later slide. All right, right to cancel. This is pretty interesting stuff. The right to cancel is very interesting. So here are the defaults. I remember before I told you that the contract is exclusive, meaning you can only really be working with one at a time, or you might owe 2 commissions, and it's also irrevocable. Okay, so let's read what I mean by that. Section 10.1, right of buyer to cancel. So this is you as the buyer. Can you cancel the agreement? In the event broker defaults under this buyer listing contract, buyer has the right to cancel this buyer listing contract, including all rights of brokerage firm to any compensation if the buyer agency box at the top of page 1 is checked. Examples of a broker default include, but are not limited to, 1, abandonment of buyer. If I stop returning phone calls, stop returning emails, things of that nature, then you can actually get out of the contract. 2, failure to fulfill all material obligations of broker. They are listed in there as to what material obligations are. And 3, failure to fulfill all material uniform duties, section 5, or if the buyer agency box at the top of page 1 is checked, the failure to fulfill all material additional duties of the buyer's agent. That's in section 6. Any rights of buyer that accrued prior to cancellation will survive such cancellation. So I still can't tell your secrets, okay? But can you just go and cancel for no reason? Nope. That is your only way to cancel if I default, okay? Not a real easy way for you to get out. Now, remember, I told you before, we add in additional stuff that allows you to end the agreement early. And that's something I hand right in. It's not included in there as a default.
How many brokers do that?
Put in the ability for people to cancel?
Yeah, the add-in.
Very few. I don't know of any. But, I mean, I'm sure there's other people that do it. I just don't know of any. Section 10.2, right of broker to cancel. So you can't cancel unless I default. But can I cancel this agreement? Let's take a look. 10.2, right of broker to cancel. Brokerage firm may cancel this buyer listing contract upon written notice to buyer if buyer fails to reasonably cooperate with broker or buyer defaults under this buyer listing contract. So what does reasonably cooperate mean? Who knows?
You know what? I have similar language in my engagement letters for tax practice work.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the reasonably cooperate standard is if for, I deal with tax debtors, people that owe money to the IRS. If I give you 2 weeks to give me certain financial information and you don't hit that 2 weeks, then that's you're not reasonably cooperating.
I agree. But it leaves a lot more room for a broker to cancel with a buyer than a buyer to cancel with a broker.
Well, this is why you add the extra out for your clients, right?
I do, right? Because I don't want someone being pissed off and me trying to hold them to agreement.
Correct.
Before I started writing that in, if a buyer didn't want to work with me, I'd just let him out. I'd say, oh, sure, I can terminate that. I have no problem.
Sure.
I understand sometimes it doesn't work out. Not a big deal. Now I just add it right up front. Why not just put it in there? I'm going to do it anyway. Why not advertise it? You make people feel better about it. I don't know. That's kind of my thought on it. Okay. Cost of third-party services or products. This basically talks about if you're going to get an inspection or an appraisal or something like that, the buyer is paying for those. The broker is not paying for those. Okay. So the buyer pays, not the broker. You need to pay for all those things from outside sources. That's what that discusses. Section 12.2, showing properties. It says the different ways that I can show you properties, and if there's any limitations, I need to disclose that to you. So for example, I usually have access to Iris and Metro List up here, but if you had other limitations, you'd write those in. Can I disclose your identity to sellers? This is usually used if like you're Walmart and you want to buy a big plot of land and you don't want the people to jack the price up because they know that it's Walmart buying. Those are cases where we would hide someone's identity. For normal, regular buyers, we're not usually hiding their identity. If you were someone famous and you were buying something, maybe we would hide you, but other times people don't care, guys. They don't care that you're buying the property. And it's going to be on public record soon anyway. So Section 14, disclosure of settlement services costs, basically says that the cost, quality, and extent of service vary between different settlement services, for example, attorneys, lenders, inspectors, and title companies, and that you need to check those and see that different people charge different things and they're different quality. Non-discrimination, I can't discriminate against you. It says it right in there. Section 16, recommendation of legal and tax counsel, basically suggests that you go talk to your tax advisor and your legal counsel before signing this. You're welcome to go do that. Again, I have this section here that if you want to terminate, you can terminate. So whatever you want to do, you want to take it and do that before you sign, that's fine with me. It doesn't mind. You're agreeing to mediation in this thing and attorney's fees. In the event of any arbitration or litigation relating to this buyer listing contract, the arbitrator or court must award to the prevailing party all reasonable costs and expenses, including attorney and legal fees. So if we decide to go fight about this, we'll get attorneys involved. Whoever wins will also get their attorney's fees paid. Okay? Additional provisions, we talked about this. This is the one where I give people the right to cancel, and it's written right there. That's what I usually include. All right, working exclusively with one agent. So a lot of investors in particular, and Nomad's less so, because the Nomads, they kind of get the relationship side. They want someone who understands Nomad, is going to invest with them and stuff. But occasionally you get a kind of salty investor coming in who kind of has some different philosophies. They're not quite the Nomad philosophies, but they come to the Nomad class and they start to see the benefit of the Nomad way, but they bring a lot of the kind of, in some ways, baggage from traditional investor world with them to the Nomad classes. So let's talk about whether or not you should work with one agent or whether you should go and say, hey, listen, I want to work with 15 different agents. Whoever brings me the deals, who's I'm going to work with. Okay, that's kind of one of the philosophies. So working exclusively with one agent, here are the benefits. Number one is the buyer's agent is obligated to send you deals that match your criteria. If you're not under an exclusive buyer agency agreement, there is no obligation for that agent to send you a deal that matches your criteria. However, if Jason, you and I have a contract that says I'm obligated to send you those deals, that's what the exclusive buyer agency says, then now I am obligated to send you something if it matches your criteria.
Right.
I can't kind of cherry pick and only show it to my best clients. I now have to show it to you as well, and anyone else who has a buyer's agency. Okay? So you shouldn't keep properties secret from my best clients, and if you have a buyer's agency, I have to show you. It's required. I have to promote the interests of the buyer with the utmost good faith, loyalty, and fidelity. That's right from that buyer agency agreement. So I'm required to kind of treat you with good faith, loyalty, and fidelity, according to the agreement. If you don't have an agreement, if you're working with a whole bunch of agents and you haven't signed agreements with all of them, which you shouldn't do, shouldn't be doing, overlapping stuff, you'll owe commissions to a whole bunch of people. But you can't go out and just say, now I have to treat all of you with the utmost good faith. I mean, they can't kind of be doing that for all of you. So. As you do multiple transactions, I can do some pretty amazing things for clients, like write super strong letters and make a case for seller accepting the deal. So there are buyers that I work with on multiple properties that I can tell some pretty amazing stories about, like, when the lender kind of poops the bed and is unable to fund the loan, buyers that came to the table with cash and just closed and got it done. I mean, me being able to write a letter like that really speaks a lot to that particular buyer, and it makes it super easy to get offers accepted because they know that they perform. So, once I've worked with you a couple times, you can do that. If you're kind of using 10 different agents, it's hard for that letter to come out from the agent because you usually don't use the same agent for a lot of deals. What are the downsides of working just with one agent? So each agent has a limited view of the world. If you wanted to buy properties in Old Town Fort Collins, that's not my area of specialty. If you wanted to buy really high-end luxury properties, that is not my area of expertise. So, there are other agents that have specialties in that. If you want to do Nomad properties, I'm your guy. I mean, I don't think there's anyone that knows Nomad as well as I do in my local marketplace. So if you got to have a limited view of the world, and depending on what you want to do, I may be a great agent for you, or I may not be the agent for you. And so just realize that. Each agent has different areas of expertise and knowledge levels, and that's kind of the same thing. But the limited view of the world is a different one in some ways because they see things certain ways. They see that, someone who understands Nomad understands that you can acquire rental properties with little or nothing down. Some people may not understand. They're like, oh, no, you want to do rental properties, you need 20% down. You need to put 20 or 25% down depending on what you're buying. They don't get it, okay? So working with multiple agents, what are the benefits if you decide, hey, listen, James is crazy. I don't think you should work with one agent. I think you should work with a whole bunch. Well, benefits are you might get more exposure to inside deals. So you may be working with, 10 or 20 or 30 different agents, and they're all supposed to bring you the best deals. And so after they show their clients that they have buyer agency agreements with, and all those guys have passed, they say, okay, great, I'll go show it to all of my other guys, and they'll show you that deal. And they'll say, oh, here's the inside deal. So you might see more inside deals, but they're usually kind of like secondhand deals. I mean, they're deals that their other clients have probably passed on because they're probably going to them first. Plus, if someone is representing a seller, and that's how you usually get inside deals, right? You're representing the seller on it, and so you're one of the few people that know about it. If they go to you and they only show one or two people, they could be violating their fiduciary responsibility to the seller by only showing a couple people. I mean, their job when they represent the seller is to, a lot of times, serve the seller and get the seller the best price, get the maximum exposure and get the seller the best price. There's some situations where that's not what the seller needs, but most cases that's what they need. And so if they're not representing the seller well, they may be violating the fiduciary responsibility they have to the seller in that case. Not really your problem, although may get tied up in a lawsuit if it comes down to it. People believe they may see more deals. That's one of the benefits of working with multiple agents. What are the downsides? Because you have loose relationships with multiple agents, they tend to serve you as their last resort to working their clients that are exclusively working with them. In fact, they probably are obligated to serve their exclusive relationships first, right? Just by the agreement that they signed. They may be bringing you deals where they represent the seller, not you. We talked a little bit about that. And depending on your agreement, you could owe multiple brokerage fees. So if you have agreements with multiple people, you may be due paying multiple brokerage fees to both of them. All right, so that was section one, the paperwork section. We might be going over time a little tiny bit. Actually, the second half goes a lot faster. All right, professional services. So one of the things we like to talk about when we sit down is, who's responsible for what in the real estate transaction? So Jason, who's responsible for the appraisal?
I don't know. My lender always takes care of it.
Yeah, but who does the appraisal? Is your real estate agent that does the appraisal and tells you the value?
No, it's an independent guy.
Yeah, it's a licensed appraiser. What about showing properties? Who assists you with showings?
My agent.
Your agent, your realtor.
Buyer's agent.
What about the condition of the property?
Hire an inspector.
Yeah, an inspector will tell you about the condition of property. Who determines whether you accept or decline the contract?
That's on me.
So the seller, the agent doesn't do that, right? They don't say to you, you accepted this.
Nope.
Okay. What about drafting, writing up a new contract?
Buyer's agent.
Drafting the contract, not like actually writing verbiage for the contract. Am I qualified to write a contract? Not fill in the blanks.
Okay. You're using Colorado DORA approved.
Correct.
Legal contracts that are actually written by an attorney.
Yes. So who would, if changes needed to be made to the contract, who makes
Yeah, a lawyer.
A lawyer does. Am I allowed to write in additional provisions like a big block of text and change things?
I actually don't know that.
It's a gray area, right? I mean, if I'm just doing what you tell me to do, I probably can write down what you tell me to do. If I'm going in there and you expect me to draft legalese and kind of make things legal, I don't know if I'm qualified to do that.
Probably not.
I'm not. Yeah. Contract preparation, filling in the blanks on the contract. Who's responsible for that?
Buyer's agent.
Yep, me. Home warranty. Do I give you a warranty? Do I warranty all the stuff in your property?
You can recommend providers, but ultimately it's up to me.
Yeah, home warranty department does it. What about an improvement location certificate, which tells you where stuff is on your property, like an outhouse or a farmhouse or things like
Sure.
that?
That would be a surveyor.
Yep. And what about the inspection on the property?
Probably a licensed inspector.
Yep. What about who selects the inspector?
Me.
Yep, you do. What about legal advice? Can I give you legal advice?
No, sir.
No, I'm not allowed to give you legal advice. What about lender selection? Who selects the lender?
That's all me.
Yep. What about a list of the home inspectors? So can I provide you a list of them?
That you can do, but the ultimate selection is still up to me.
That's right. What about a list of lenders?
You could do that.
Yep. But you ultimately choose.
Correct.
Who makes a decision about the interest rate on the loan or the term of the loan? What you're going to do?
Since I just did this a month ago, myself.
Yep, you do that. What about market evaluation? Who can tell you about, the market's going up, the market's going down, properties that are selling, properties that are on the market?
I'm relying on you for that.
That's right. What about Megan's Law for sex offenders? Who's responsible for that?
Okay, I don't know in Colorado. Out here, I'm relying on my broker for that.
Okay, so in Colorado, the buyer is responsible, and you should check with local law enforcement.
Okay.
And that's part of our contract. It says right in the contract that you sign, if you're concerned about sex offenders, you should check on that for you. What happens in Seattle?
Out here, the buyer's agent can make recommendations.
Like recommendations like go check the website?
Yeah, like here's the county registry site. Here's this national database. Here's the Washington Department of Corrections release schedule, etc.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's pretty common out here.
Okay, what about meth? Who takes care of meth in the property? Do you know? Did I lose you? All right, I'm going to assume that I lost Jason. So meth, we use an industrial hygienist for that. Isn't
the disclosure up to the seller's agent?
For meth?
Yeah.
No, it's not up to the seller's agent. There's a section in the contract that basically says if it's past the if it's been remediated and it's past the thing, that they don't actually even need to disclose.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's written right in the contract. Mold inspection.
That's on me, I believe.
Or a mold inspector. Negotiations. Who's responsible for negotiations?
That's all you.
That's the realtor. What about neighborhood crime statistics?
Police department?
Yep, local police or sheriff's department. And all areas have some crime. What about new loan? Who gets the new loan?
That's on me.
Yep, your bank or your mortgage company too. What about structural issues? We're walking through the basement, we see a crack. Should your real estate agent be knowledgeable enough to tell you about that?
Most situations, the agent is not a structural engineer, so no.
That's right. You need a structural engineer to do that. What about a survey? Tell you exactly where the property lines are.
Nope. It's not your responsibility. I got to hire a surveyor.
Yeah. What about taxes? You tell me. Am I qualified to handle your taxes, Jason?
No, you are not.
No, I'm not as well.
Sorry.
That is true. No, that's true. I mean, so Jason is my tax guy. And, he's done a bunch of tax stuff for our family. And he knows that I'm not qualified to do taxes. That is not my area of expertise. I do not have the patience for it. So termites. Who does termites?
Licensed wood-borne, whatever inspector they call them.
All right, termite inspector is what we're going to call them here. And what about title examination? Who actually, when we get the title report back, who reviews the title report and tells you and interprets that and tells you what's going on? Is it the real estate agent or is it someone else?
It is the title company.
Yeah, title company or your attorney. So if you have questions that title company can't answer, a lot of times they can't, then you need to go hire an attorney who specializes in title work.
Yes.
Do that. All right, so here are the answers to those. If you ever want to look at them later, I'll kind of leave it on here so you can pause the video if you're watching the recording after the fact. This shows you the answers to all those different things, okay? So that was professional services provided. Now we're going to talk about your real estate goals. And usually when we sit down, we'll say, so what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to buy an owner-occupant property? Are you trying to do the Nomad model? Are you trying to do buy and hold? You're looking to do lease options? Are you looking to do fix and flip? Are you trying to do creative transactions and other off-market stuff? And we're just going to talk about your goals during this. You can go model the Nomad thing with the calculator. Go to the Nomad calculator on the website. You can do that. But really, it's partially about the calculator, but it's also ongoing discussions about getting together and discussing year 2 and year 3 and year 4. My philosophy is long-term relationships with nomads. Okay, And clients can schedule, time with me anytime to discuss their personal goals. They want to go grab a burrito. What Jason said is largely true. If a client wants to go sit down and grab a burrito, and, maybe they're tight on their paycheck that month and they just want free food. I don't know. Most of the time it's they have knowledge, but they usually go and they schedule time with me and they want to sit down and we have a burrito. So that's how it typically works. Okay. First meeting with real estate agent. We talk about the financing part of it. This was covered all last week. We did a 2-hour class just on financing. You go to Financing Nomad 101. You can watch the video for Premium Nomads. We also discuss this one-on-one with clients, especially when we're out looking at properties and things are changing, because I could go tell you 2 hours worth of stuff, but most people aren't going to remember 2 hours worth of stuff. And so we're constantly going out there and talking about, oh yeah, I remember now it's 25% for the, the duplexes or the whatever it is, or, if we're doing Nomad, it's 1% down for the first one and, 3% down for the second and third one and 5% down for additional ones. We're talking about that strategy as we shop for houses. But a lot of that discussion happens up front because people have a lot of questions with that up front.
James, I can't resist.
Go ahead and ask it.
This is an inside joke. James, how do I find money to do real estate investing?
Yeah. So Jason, for many years, he came to the Investor Club probably, it must have been like 2004 or 5. I don't remember exactly when it was.
It was like 2005, 2006.
Okay. So 2005, he comes in and, one of his first questions is, hey, I want to get involved in this real estate stuff, but I don't have any money. Can you do this with no money down? Yes. So did you put money down on your last 2 purchases?
No.
Yeah. You had some closing costs, though, right?
I had a few thousand in closing costs, but I didn't put any money down.
Yeah, so you did VA loans with nothing down. So there you go. You answered your own question after a number of years.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, so usually we talk about financing. We kind of had a whole class on that, so you can do that. Receiving property lists. So we're going to have a class coming up on January 31st. It's finding properties for nomads, and it's going to be all about receiving the property lists and selecting which properties to look at and things of that nature. There is a previous recording from the last time I taught that class. It's available on the website for Premium Nomads if you want to go do that. Moving on with the first meeting, analyzing deals. So I usually talk a little bit about this at the initial meeting, but this is a big discussion topic, and it's something we spend a lot of time with teaching classes on. So there's a class called Analyzing Deals 101, an intro to cash on cash return on investment. That's the one we're teaching not next week, but 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, February 14th. That's the Valentine's Day class. And so there's a previous recording of that for Premium Nomads. You want to go watch it, learntoberichcom/cash on cash, and it has the video from the last time I taught it. But we're going to teach it again live, and it's free for everybody when we teach it live on February 14th. If you want to go use the same spreadsheet we use to analyze deals, you're welcome to go download that. That's also open to the public, learntoberichcom/spreadsheet. Just go to the website. You can download a copy of Brian's spreadsheet. Brian's one of my best friends, active real estate investor. He teaches a bunch of classes up here with me, and a really sharp guy. And he made a spreadsheet, and I made a spreadsheet too. My spreadsheet's a little bit more complicated than his, and so we teach his, which if you think his is complicated, mine's like way more complicated. So just realize that. In fact, my spreadsheet's called it's called Sasquatch. It's called the Sasquatch because we often talk about it, but it's rarely ever seen because it's so complicated. It just confuses people. So, all right, so there's another class on analyzing a deal with Brian's spreadsheet, which is a little bit different than Analyzing Deals 101, because I basically just walk you through the spreadsheet for the whole class. That one's going to be taught live on May 2nd, or you can go watch the recording of it at that URL right there. I taught it late last year, and so there's a recording on that. And then there's another one, Analyzing Deals 201. This is the deal analysis where we look at a lease option exit. If you kind of read that book, the smaller book here, smaller book here. This one is lease option exit. And so we can use the spreadsheet to analyze the deals with lease option exit. And that class basically picks up from analyzing a deal with Brian's spreadsheet and continues on with a little bit more advanced deal analysis strategy about selling with lease options. That one's going to be taught live on May 23rd, or go watch the previous one I recorded right there for Premium Nomads. And then Analyzing Deals 301, multifamily for nomads. If you're doing duplex, triplex, or fourplex, it's really not that much different. But we do break it out because people get confused. I mean, they think that, you're doing a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. It's different. There are some little differences, but it's not very big at all. So we have a whole class on that, Analyzing Deals 301, multifamily for nomads. I'm not sure if there's a recording for that one up. So if you're a Premium Nomad and you're looking for the previous recording, I'm not sure I've ever taught that one in this format. So there may not be a recording of that until September 26th. And then Nomad Calculator Classic, That's where you can go and enter in your numbers for your market, and it will run you buying a property every year for 10 years and do the calculations and show you, what your return looks like, what your whole portfolio looks like, what your cash flow looks like, what your equity looks like. It has a whole bunch of stuff, and it creates all the charts. Basically, all those charts you see on the website and in the books and stuff like that, they're all created with that calculator. And so you can go run your own numbers for your city and your marketplace and have those charts updated real time. So those are part of the things for analyzing a deal. And then that book, Hold, by Gary Keller. It's a really good introduction book on how to analyze properties and stuff like that. I'd recommend picking that one up. I don't know, it's got to be like $20 or something on Amazon if I had to guess. And then in our local market, I have a bunch of other tools. Your local real estate agent might have some additional ones. These tools are really not going to be good for you if you're in different markets. All of the videos and training and stuff like that would be great in other markets. But if you're in our local market, I have some searching tools and stuff that are on my website that deal specific with my MLS. But it's not going to be good for you in other markets. So, unless you're local, you really shouldn't even look at this page. But I'll leave it up there for a moment so people can pause it and go look at it if they're watching the recording after the fact. And so last thing about first meeting with the real estate agent is going over writing the offer. And I usually do talk a little bit about this at the initial meeting, about using DocuSign and how this works. We are going to do a whole 2-hour class on March 14th called Making Strong Offers That Get Accepted. And I've taught this class before. If you want to go watch the previous version, you can do that as a premium Nomad. You can watch those other classes to make sure we cover those. But it's basically all about writing offers. And so that's basically what happens at the first meeting. Now, we've covered during financing kind of the pre-showing, what you need before you go on showings. And really the steps are qualify with the lender, which we covered, pre-approval letter, which is what you want to get when you get qualified with the lender. We're going to talk a little bit about earnest money. We're going to talk a little bit about the down payment and needing that. And then the mock contract, which is basically going over the contract so that we're not discussing contracts at 7 o'clock at night when you finally find the property you love. And now you're trying to figure out, a 19-page sales contract and all additional disclosures and addendum and how this works. I'd rather do it with low stress at a time when it doesn't really matter and you can have the time to go have your attorney review it and your accountant review it and all that other stuff. So we talk about going over a contract ahead of time and not in the evening after you see the property you love and you're all emotional. So qualifying with the lender, this is covered in detail in Financing Nomad 101, so please watch that. It's like 2 hours long. And then call one or more lenders, get pre-qualified. The ultimate goal is to get the pre-approval letter. And you'll want to make a formal application, understand what they'll need and provide it to them as soon as possible. Get rates from them so you'll know what to plug in when you're analyzing your deals and what your monthly payment will be if you're buying owner-occupant. And then know your comfortable payment number and the max you qualify. We talked about that a lot in detail last week. And then the pre-approval letter, you should have this before we look at properties. So you want to have the pre-approval letter ahead of time. Discussed last week in the Financing Nomad 101 class, so go watch that for additional information. But get the pre-approval letter from your lender and have them send it to me or your agent, whoever you're working with. And then when we make an offer, I'll usually ask the lender to adjust the number. So if you got pre-approved for 400 and we're only buying a property for 300, I won't have 400 on there if I can help it. I'd rather have the property price that you're buying and use it on there. And then we will include that pre-approval letter with your offer when you make it via DocuSign. Am I going too fast, Jason?
No, you're fine.
Okay. And then pre-showings, earnest money. You'll usually need the earnest money right after an offer is accepted. In other markets, you may need it when you make your offer. It may need to be stapled as a check, or you may need to kind of deposit it with the brokerage or something like that. In our market, we use what's called an alternative earnest money deadline, which means we write a contract, and then after the contract is accepted, you have a certain amount of time to get the earnest money to whoever's going to be holding it, the earnest money holder, which a lot of times is the title company, sometimes the seller's agency or seller's brokerage, but a lot of times it's going to be a title company. So we use that, and a lot of times it's like 2 days. Once you get a contract accepted, then within 2 days you have to have the earnest money. The earnest money is usually about 1% of the price of the property. So if you're buying a $300,000 property, it's going to be about $3,000. And realize too, if you're doing a 1% down program, that's really your down payment right there. So the money that you use for earnest money does get applied towards your down payment. And in fact, if you're doing a VA loan, did you have to put up earnest money for your VA loan, Jason?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and so what happened with your earnest money at closing?
It got applied to my closing costs.
Okay, so you had closing costs, but if you had raised the interest rate and had no money in the deal, you would have actually gotten a check back at closing for your earnest money.
Absolutely.
Okay, so usually it's a personal check for earnest money. Sometimes they'll want certified funds, but a lot of times personal checks can be fine. Then once your offer is accepted, your agent or me, whoever it is at the time, will coordinate getting the earnest money to the earnest money holder with you and offering that to seller's brokerage or title I talked to you about before. Once we give it to them, you'll get an earnest money receipt showing you that you put the earnest money up, and you have a receipt to show it. It basically counts to your down payment. I talked about that. And then, is it refundable? So if you go and you have your inspection and you had an inspection objection section of your contract and you kept that in there and you objected to it and you canceled the contract according to it, usually the earnest money is refundable if you terminate under a clause in the contract where you get your earnest money back, but you got to read your contract and know. So in most cases around here, we keep those in, but there are exceptions. When we're trying to make our offer stronger, a lot of times we'll waive certain things. And so realize that sometimes that earnest money becomes non-refundable. It is not an automatic given thing that you get your earnest money back every single time. If you miss a deadline or you don't actually object to something at the right time, you could lose your earnest money. So realize that and pay attention to your dates and deadlines. Something we're really paranoid about here. But make sure you're on top of your dates and deadlines, or your agent is on top of your dates and deadlines. It's really important stuff.
Well, that's a powerful part of having a transaction coordinator like you do with well, she happens to be your wife, but making sure that your broker has somebody that keeps them on the ball.
Yeah. Tammy does a great job. She's like super detail oriented and can handle those things. So pre-showings, we talked about earnest money, down payment. We're going to do an entire class on getting down payments for Nomad, because I know that it's, I'm surprised it didn't come up as a reason for people not to do it. There's a lot of people tell me, like Jason said before, can you do this with no money down? Yeah, you can totally do it with no money down. The class we're going to do on February 28th, how to get down payment for Nomad. We're going to go into detail. We're going to go to Freaky Town about coming up with down payment for Nomad. We're going to talk about all sorts of strategies for doing that. I taught that class last year. It's really good. You can go watch the premium Nomad clients and go watch it, the old video here, or we're going to teach it again on February 28th. So you can just wait a couple weeks and do it.
Can I throw something out on that, James? Yeah. People, I've talked to actually a few people that think that in order to do these like no money down programs, that they have to demonstrate that they're broke somehow, that they have to like show bank statements or tax returns or whatever saying, oh, look, I don't make any money. Not true. I have the cash in the bank right now to have made the down payments on both properties I've purchased.
Yeah.
I just didn't have to.
Right. You just chose not to.
Correct.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, think about this. I mean, there are, I've got money, clients have money where they could actually put up, pay all cash for the property, but they're choosing just to do the down payment amount. Mm-hmm. It's just a loan program where you just need that down payment. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some loan programs where you're getting down payment assistance or something like that, where there may be some qualifications where you're required to not earn over a certain amount or not have a certain amount of money or whatever it is, but not a lot of the programs we talk about for Nomad. FHA and VA, I mean, FHA is 3.5% down. The conventional loan, if you have 1% down, you can do that. You don't have to just have 1%. You could have 100% down and do the 1% down program. So just realize that. So down payment, you do need to disclose if you have the down payment when you make your offer. So plan for that in advance of making your offer. So if you know that you're going to need to show that you have the down payment in your bank account somewhere, make sure that you can document where that is, because one of the check boxes, at least on our contract here in Colorado, is do you have the down payment in an account that you can verify? And they may ask for that. So you'll need the down payment and source where the funds came from for most lenders. So it's not enough for you to be able to borrow the money from your boss or a friend or something like that. You need to document where this down payment comes from in order to get these loans. So plan ahead and communicate with your lender ahead of time. Tell them, hey, listen, I plan on getting this money from XYZ. Is that going to be okay? And the lender will tell you, no, you cannot borrow that money in order to do it. It has to be a gift, or you have to be able to source where it came from. It has to be sale of something, and you have to document it with paper trail. And, just be aware of that and be aware of what the deadlines are. So if your lender says, hey, any money that came into your account within the last 60 days, I need a letter of explanation explaining where it came from. So realize if you had any big weird cash transfers, I may need to know about that. So talk to your lender and understand what they need and what their requirements are. And then legacy nomads that are going to be gifting their kids or their grandkids down payment money. That's what legacy nomads are. That's what we're doing with our kids. Then, talk to your lender early and see what you might need to do to document that you're getting this gift from your parents or your grandparents or whoever it is to be able to do it. And if you're the one gifting it, I would check with the lender too to make sure that you're in compliance and you're doing it right. Okay, and then pre-showings, mock contract. So we usually go over the contract to buy and sell. If there are tenants, we're using the income version of the contract. We're not going to see this a lot with nomads, but in some cases, the lease is going to be month to month, or it's going to be up within 60 days, because as a nomad, we need to owner occupy the property. We're getting owner occupant financing. And the rule for owner occupant financing is you need to move into the property within 60 days in most cases. So realize that it's really unusual to buy a property where you have a tenant and the tenant's going to stay there for more than 60 days. Like they're on a year-long lease and they're in month 3 of 12. It's really hard to buy properties like that. I have had clients do it. I had a client buy a property and literally offer cash to the tenant for them to move out early. It says, I will buy out your lease. Here's a couple $1,000s. I forget exactly what it was, but here's some money to move out and cancel your lease with me because I need to move in and I'm buying the property. Because the lease, at least in Colorado, the lease stays with the property. It does not go away when you have a sale. So if the previous seller had a lease on the property, you cannot just cancel that lease unless it says that you can in the agreement with the tenant. So just realize that. And then when we go over the contract, the contract to buy and sell, we'll usually talk about the disclosures. There's a whole class on seller's property disclosure. We just did that, I don't know, a couple of months ago. You can go watch the video. I don't know if it's on the schedule to do again. It might be. And then source of water addendum, square footage disclosure, lead-based paint disclosure if it was built before 1978 or something like that. And then if it's in the city of Fort Collins around here, we have an additional disclosure. And I'm sure other cities are going to have their own additional disclosures that you have on there too. And then we're going to cover a lot of this in the class on writing offers, which is right on there. We have that coming up pretty soon. So,
hey James, real quick.
Yeah.
For those of you that are buying multi-unit properties, make sure you get a copy of the lease for any existing tenants that are in the building.
Yep.
It took about 6-7 weeks in order for me to get a copy of the lease when I bought my first Nomad property. So I was buying a duplex, and one side was occupied, one side was empty, and it was pulling teeth to get that lease. But I knew that I would be shooting myself in the foot in the long term if I didn't get a copy of that contract.
Yeah, and you need also a tenant estoppel statement, which is signed by the tenant saying how much money the seller owes them and what their current lease amount and what the security deposit being held is. So you have an agreement from them as to what those terms are. It's called tenant estoppel statement. You need
Good
that.
point.
All right, cool. Buying process overview showing. So we're going to cover that at Looking on Houses on March 7th. So if you want to watch the video of that, and Premium Nomads can go watch it now or just wait till March 7th. Writing offers. We already talked about this. It's going to be on March 14th. That's the making strong offers that get accepted. And then contract to close. We've got a whole class on that on March 28th. Contract to close. And then the closing. Guess what? Closing real estate deals class on April 18th. We're going to do that one. So you can go to Closing Real Estate Deals. There's a whole class taught on that, I believe, before. So you can go watch that. And if you're a Premium Nomad, you can go watch it now. And then finally, post-closing. My philosophy, as I told you at the very beginning, is you should have an ongoing relationship with your real estate agent. They should be willing to do real estate reviews, which is sit down with you and go over your real estate holdings, your portfolio, kind of what it's worth, discuss some strategies about what you can do, how you can improve it, how you can make it better, whether you should sell off certain properties because they may not be the best ones to hold long term, whether you should acquire more or diversify or refinance or things like that. They should give you a referral directory, in my opinion, where they could tell you about lenders and inspectors and even more non-real estate related things like health insurance people and stuff like that. I think they should have a referral directory because they know a lot of people. So I think that's part of it too. Changes in market conditions that affect your resale. So months of inventory is a pretty key one for me. I think your real estate agent could be telling you about what the status of the market is, any changes in interest rates, whether or not you should refinance or consider refinancing to improve your cash flow position, rental market changes, things about that. I think they should be helping you with those things. And then here's the big one that I'm just huge on, and that is the classes on various real estate topics for nomads and other people. I think that's one of the things that we do. I've been doing real estate classes since 2003. And now we currently do about 50 live classes in our local market each year. And we do about 50 classes for the nomads on Tuesday night. This is one of them. So, I think it's really important to continue to educate and give back and help your local clients and help them understand what's going on and help them do that. And like I told you before, there's no quid pro quo, you have to do a deal with me. But I think that naturally when you go and you invest in time and if you're a volunteer and you're helping out with your local Nomad club and you're sharing what works and explaining, how these videos work and relate to your local market, I think it's inevitable that clients are going to be attracted to people that are helpful and there to serve them. And they're not just, where's my commission, but they're investing in that long-term relationship and helping people. And I think that's largely what these investor clubs that we're doing, the Nomad investor clubs nationwide, is all about. So I think ongoing support and education on the Nomad path is important on that. And then, of course, they should be there to answer any of your real estate questions. So if you've got questions, moving forward, I think that that's important too. So speaking of questions, that's it. Only 5 minutes over. I appreciate you guys sticking it out with us. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to use the chat or the Q&A section. Jason, how'd we do?
You mentioned the premium program several times. We haven't really talked about it. I know you're not really here to sell stuff and whatever, but I do think it's worth mentioning at least the premium program, the fact that you recently slashed the price on it drastically.
Yeah.
I just think it's worth talking about for a little
so
bit.
Our philosophy with the Nomad investor clubs, especially as we roll out nationwide, clients locally and for clients, if you're buying or selling a house with me, you get access to all of the videos live on Tuesday night. You can watch the recording on Wednesday and Thursday. They're public and they're made available to everybody. But if you're a client, you also get access to Premium Nomad. If you're buying or selling a house with me, you can go watch any of the past videos that I recorded and technology cooperated, where we have them on the website, all those URLs or all the different videos. Just kind of sit down with me and say, listen, I need access to those. I'm a client with you. I'm buying or selling a house. You do that. But people in other market who aren't buying houses with me, how do they get access to these previous recorded videos? And, we struggled a long time with how to do this and make it fair and everything. And we decided that what we're going to do is for $99 for the year, you get access to all of the previously recorded videos from last year. And then as I do the new recordings, we're only going to put those up for Wednesday and Thursday live and make them public. But after that, they go into the kind of vault, the archive, where they're all locked down and you can do that. And so for $99 for the year, you can go watch all the previous videos and get access to those asynchronously. You don't need to wait for March 12th or whatever it is that we're having them. So basically that's what's available. And it's like, I think it's like $100. I think it's what we did. The price is like $99.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to do that, you can go to the learntoberich.com/premium and you can get access to those at any time. It should just unlock for you. Just go ahead and pay and it just unlocks all of them. So Sandy has a question now. Going back to second FHA loans, how do you justify a second FHA loan for a property in the same area as the first? Basically talk to your lender and find out what they're going to need for you to do it. If you're going to go buy a second property, there's going to need to be a reason to do it. So just go talk to your lender and about the particular property. It's just a matter of finding out why you're doing the move. And by the way, as much as we'd like to make it, I'm doing Nomad is not a valid excuse for kind of doing these second properties and stuff. We're working toward that end, but not enough lenders know what Nomad is that we could just say that. So I wish I had a better answer, Sandy, but you do need to talk to your lender and find out kind of what the qualification is going to be for that. It's really hard to qualify for that second FHA loan.
Can I touch on that, James?
Yeah, please do.
So this is just based on my own research. I am a total nerd when it comes to this stuff. I'm the kind of person, I'm a tax professional by trade. I enjoy reading tax code. And so when anything of this lender stuff comes up, I delve into it in a very weird way. I actually went through a couple weeks ago and read most of the text of the 4000.1 manual, which is the FHA lender handbook. The big things you need to be aware of. And again, I'm not a lender. This is not legal advice, blah, blah, blah. But from what I read, you either need to move 100 miles away and have a valid reason for doing so, such as employment or a business opportunity, etc. For example, my third Nomad property will probably be FHA. And who knows, maybe my tech startup in Seattle will be purchased by a company in another state, and I'm going to have to move away in order to, do that. And then woohoo, I might get to do another FHA loan. The other thing is that there are usually overlays on top of that. The big one that I found was the requirement to have 75% equity in the first FHA loan that you have before they'll give you another one.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's what you were trying to get me to talk about last week, and I just like slipped my mind on that whole thing.
Yeah, so for most nomads who are going to be putting minimal down, 3.5% in this case, the second FHA loan is probably not going to be a good option.
No,
it's not one that we normally recommend. I mean, if you remember from Financing Nomad 101, we talked about the primary strategy is if you can get a VA loan, if you have VA benefits, a lot of times we recommend VA loan first for some type of multi-unit, and then using your FHA loan to get either a multi-unit or single family home. And then after that, we recommend primarily that you go conventional. I mean, if you can get 2 VAs up front, you do that. But I mean, it's primarily a race to get to the conventional loans. And then the conventional loans, if you're doing your first one, you can do the 1% down program, which is really just a fancy 3% down where the lender credits you back 2% of it. And then you can do a 3% down conventional for like the first 1 or 2 properties that you do, but not sequentially. So if you've already done the VA and the FHA, it's going to be hard to do the 3. But primarily what we model Nomad at, if you kind of look at the Nomad book and what we talk about and how we really kind of do the math for it, it's almost all 5% down. And 5% down, you can do up to 10. And if you're willing to kind of alternate between husband and wife or, spouse and spouse, and you go back and forth between them, you can do 10 in each name if you do them solo. So you could really do up to 20 loans in your name if you really wanted to get crazy and do it. We model it up to 10, and the spouses can buy together with that model. And so you really do primarily that 5% down program for all the conventional stuff. So we're not really recommending the second FHA. It kind of came up as a weird exception, and we did talk about it, but it's not something we really advocate and plan to do. If you kind of look at the Financing Nomad model, it's not listed on that recommended order page when you do that. So
two things on that. This is just in my own experience as I've been reaching out to my lender and my bank, my credit union. The conventional 97 program doesn't seem to be very well marketed to the loan brokers.
Yeah, maybe true.
So beware of that. The 3% down program, let alone with the 2% kickback, is just be sure to ask around for it. And then also, this has been out of the past month after I closed on house number 2 and I'm looking ahead at number 3. The biggest thing that I've learned is that you cannot do a conventional loan under the low down payment, the 1%, 3%, 5% program, owner occ multi-unit. That was like this whole time I thought, hey, great, I'll do my VA loans, and then I'll buy another multi-unit property with 5% down. I'll buy a 4-plex and I'll do it conventional. Nah.
Yeah, we all have those little blind spots where we we think we understand how something works, and then we find out that it doesn't.
SFR only on single family residence only on the conventional 97 and conventional 95.
Yeah, unless there's a lender out there listening to this after the fact that has a program, in which case contact me. But we're not aware of any 3% down, which is what you're calling the 97% program for doing a multifamily where you move in.
If there is a lender that'll do conventional on 97, give me a call at area code 605.
And I didn't cut you off. It's you trailed off.
No, seriously, call me. I'm open. I want to hear it.
And I think you're right about that. I think is one of the great things about us doing the Nomad nationwide is we're gonna get the exposure out there, and we're gonna learn a ton from people doing this in other markets and things that just didn't happen to my clients or myself or my friends that are kind of doing the Nomad model in our local market. We're going to learn a lot more and a lot faster, and I'm happy to share. I mean, as you can tell, I'm pretty open about how we do things and how it works and what we're doing here. And I think the more we learn about that by people coming on these things and sharing and being open and doing that, I think that the smarter all of us will become and the better the program will be overall. So that's kind of my take on it.
Well, and James, I mean, I've known you for 12 years now, whatever. You've been an amazing friend. You've been an amazing mentor. But seriously, just seeing how you interact with other people. I mean, I swear to God, anytime I swing through Fort Collins, I just automatically go to the Qdoba location that I know that you're
You
at.
stalk me at Qdoba?
I kind of stalk you at Qdoba because, you know, even if we've scheduled ahead of time, oh, I'm going to be in town, we're going to have dinner. You know what? I go there. I show up at 11 o'clock, and you know, because they have free Wi-Fi, and so I get my own work done, right? You know, for my own business, and inevitably, I'd say 8 times out of 10, you're there just giving advice to somebody that's actually not even paying you any money.
Well, I mean, I get paid enough.
No, I know, but I mean, it's just you're so helpful. You're reasonably free with your time, and you know, I mean, there's limitations, obviously, but I don't know. You're just a good guy. You're like one of the few that's left, I think.
All right.
You
know?
I
appreciate it. You make me feel a little uncomfortable, but yeah, thank you very much for saying this thing. You have to send you some money or something like that.
No.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, and thanks for everyone for coming on. We will see you next week. What is next week's class again? I don't remember. Something amazing, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, come on for next week's class. We'll put the recording up here when we're done. But thanks again for everyone who participated, and we will see you soon. I'm going to end the call. Jason, you want to call me after the fact?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Oh, you're welcome, Elijah. All right, yeah. Why don't you call me when we get done? I'll stop the recording. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye for now.